Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast. This is episode 199. We are almost at 200 episodes of this 10-episode podcast, because that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a 10-episode podcast, but here we are. We are going to be talking about resin and why it is toxic, but we're also going to be talking about why it is, not like what makes it toxic. And we've got Craig here from 3D Resin Solutions, and in the background, audio only, we've got Atlas 3D as well. We got a representative over from Atlas who's going to be, just giving us the perspective of not only being a customer of Craig and 3D Resin Solutions, but also about formulating custom resin to hit specific needs. So, gentlemen, I will ask for the Backstreet Boys from you, the who you are, the where you from, the what you did, and as long as you love me.
You want to go first there, Will?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Will. Everyone calls me Monkey. I'm from Atlas. And we just absolutely love working with Craig. Most of y'all who are in 3D printing and miniatures know us. We put all the supports on the things, and we make life easier so that you don't have to fight with your models and you can just hit print.
I have been a customer of Atlas for custom supports now for quite some time. Highly recommended. Their pricing is very good, even when customers give us crappy models. In fact, I have a couple pieces for you. We'll chat after the show, but I have a couple of pieces for you. But yeah, good, amazing custom supports.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Craig. I'm Director of Operations of Interactive Inks and Coatings, which owns 3D Resin Solutions. I started 3D Resin Solutions in 2017 or so, 2018, because I'm a hobbyist and I was playing D&D at the time, and I remember reading a magazine that was like explaining 3D photopolymer, and I'm like, I already have like half these ingredients, so I can start doing this. So
you're just like mad scientist in the lab.
Pretty much. That was the beginning. I mean, we've been making Interactive Inks makes 3D photopolymers for coatings, industrial coatings, inks, and things like that. So the chemistry is very similar. So I already knew what to do. Mm-hmm. But that's how 3D Resin Solutions got started. So then me and my buddy and my brother, we started 3D Resin Solutions as like a side hustle, and it grew. So now I just rent space out of Interactive Inks, like 1,000 square feet, and we operate out of that,
nice.
Which gives us a lot of leeway, because it gives me a full laboratory that I only have to pay for when I need it. And it gives me a full production crew that I only have to pay for when I need it. And it's great. It's a great little interesting gig we set up here. And yeah, so that's how we got started, and been doing it for, like I said, since 2018. So been formulating custom things, trying to get more into industry, and been partnering with Will to, hit the hobby market, and been going from there. But as far as formulation goes, yeah, we've been doing it for 20 years or so.
You guys just recently released this resin that gets harder the hotter it gets. Well, I won't say the hotter it gets, but when you bake it, it becomes stronger as a method of post-curing. It looks like it's annealing to me, because that's like what I would traditionally do for like a peak peck or an ultimate would go into a oven for post print annealing. But we're seeing ridiculous properties out of some of that resin. So very cool.
That's so thermal curing your photopolymer. The whole idea there is, I wasn't sure what you wanted to talk about today. So if we're talking about, hazards and stuff like that, thermal curing is a huge way around getting the full linkage, because a lot of what makes hazard 3D printing hazardous is unreacted monomers. So that's why it's always going to be hazardous in liquid state. Thermal curing forces all the linkages to come together and everything to bond. Mm-hmm. So during that process, yeah, you can get a lot of unique properties. We can go into high flux resins, highly impact resins, like crazy impact resins, if you thermal cure. And then, of course, we started getting into molding and all these other things. It really opens up a wide range of properties available to you. And yeah, it is kind of like annealing. I guess you can compare it to that.
It's kind of what it feels like from a non-educated customer standpoint, right? And for those that didn't notice, Craig does have one of the best mugs that I've ever seen. It is just hold it up to the camera. We won't say it because we're a little too. Oh no, that is 5 minutes. It says "Get
we're in
shit
5 minutes.
done." So
Yeah.
absolutely love that mug. That's just a great mug to be randomly picking up during a conference call. I absolutely love it. But the reason we're having this chat is because 2 weeks ago we did a overview of materials, right, for the consumer grade 3D printer market. Because not a lot of people understand it. And even I, especially on the resin side, do not understand even close to what this stuff is, why it matters, or even further, why the heck I should even care. Right? Because it's like, it's resin. I don't know. I just kind of buy from the companies that I buy from, and it is what it is.
Right.
But with filament, I know a fair bit about it, but we brought in Mitch from Polar Filament, who is a, expert in producing filament and has done some really cool stuff. He's making PA12 nylon filament out of waste from SLS 3D printers.
Yeah.
And that's pretty darn cool.
No, it's awesome. I've seen at a lot of the trade shows, they have these new machines that, you can buy them. I mean, they'll get cheaper over time, but you can take all of your waste material, grind it back in, and then extrude it back out into 3D filament. Yep. It's a good recycling process for sure.
Unfortunately, something like that does not exist currently for resin that I'm aware of. It is a egg frying process. Once you have cooked the egg, you can no longer uncook it. It is a thermodynamic issue, right?
Yeah. Well, once you polymerize, you created a new polymer. And once it's a polymer, there's no going back. So
awesome. Yeah. That just things I don't fundamentally understand, right? And I knew about the polymer thing, but I know that it's way more technical than that. Real quick, I do want to take a moment to thank the awesome people in the chat. We got Max H, Jose Ferreria, Rose Kindred, Miss Amber B herself. Reth is here. Reth will be an upcoming podcast guest all about input shaping. So if you want to see that, make sure you get subscribed. David Connor Shover is here. Mad Cat USA giving us the first $5 on our way to hopefully getting 50, so that we can keep ads off of our live streams. I want to start making sure that our live streams are ad-free so that you guys can enjoy it without interruptions. That's kind of my goal. We got Justin Miller here, Daniel Deslandis, Travis G, Mr. MN Don, Monkey Butler Labs. Who else we got? Tom, Mr. Yog Shagoth is here, Matrix Tech, Soundspark, and I think that's everybody. Okay, that's everyone that I see in the chat. Remember, we are going to be giving away some printed solid Jesse filament. So if you do want to get that in the pinned comment, like, subscribe, all those things. But let's get back to talking about the resin. So Tom, right off the back, giving us a great question to start from. What makes resin so damn smelly? Is it the photo initiator or what?
The monomers. Yeah, it's that
monomers?
smell
Okay.
is all the monomers. So there's a lot of different monomers out there. Some of them are just more odorous than others. I don't know how else to put that, but like one of the most popular monomers to cut in oligomers is like IBOA, and that stinks. I mean, it just does.
Okay.
So we avoid using those kind of things. But again, if you're formulating for specific properties, sometimes there's no way around it.
That's fair. And so Tom is mentioning that Formlabs resin smells so much nicer than all the others he's used. He'd love to know why. I will say, I've tried some just like offensive resins. And then there are some that I find almost pleasant. Like in a weird chemically way. Like I probably shouldn't be smelling this.
Yeah.
But it's not offensive. And I've always wondered what did that too. So it's this.
I think this is kind of a situation where it's like beauty's in the eye of the beholder type of thing. Some things stink to people and some don't. I mean, even in my production plant here, everyone has a different opinion as to what actually is offensive to them, and what's offensive to me is different. I mean, I remember I had this one monomer that I didn't use for the first 2 years because I thought it stank. And then it took me a year until I put it into a formula incentive because I needed the properties, and they had no problem with it. Nobody else had a problem with it. So I'm like, okay, well, I have to readjust how I think about these things. But it all comes from the monomers. And why does Formlabs stink or not stink? Again, it could be a little bit of just personal opinion, but a lot of it also could be Formlabs probably has lower, at least with some of their materials, probably a lower monomer content. They have a built-in heater, if I'm not mistaken. They have a built-in mixer.
I know they have the mixer. I don't know about the heater. It's been a while.
But and then also they likely put in a little something something to make it smell decent. You know,
That wouldn't surprise
there's
me, especially for the
right.
amount of money they charge.
Right. I mean, we have all these additives. I haven't used them yet, but I might start doing it if people really are like, you know, having a problem with the smell. But the reality of it is, guys, if you're sitting around smelling resin, you should probably get better ventilation.
Yeah,
But,
you
you
don't.
know,
If you're smelling it, there's a problem.
right. You don't really want to be smelling it. So there's that aspect of it too. Because if
Yep.
like Will and I were talking about putting lavender into the resins, and we were just kind of joking around about it in his Discord. And, you know, it's like, do you actually want to make it smell good? I mean, is that like a goal? Because
Yeah, part of
you
me
know, I
thinks
don't.
it should smell at least a little bit offensive, or knowingly chemically,
Right.
because
Then
like
it's reminding you,
yeah,
right? You
it's
shouldn't be smelling
reminding
it.
you that hey,
Right.
you probably shouldn't be smelling this.
Right. Whereas if it smells good, you're kind of like, you know, oh, this is great.
Ooh,
You know?
let me get a little bit more of it. Let me put a
Right,
little bit under
waft it
my
in.
nose to just enjoy it. Yeah,
Right.
that one can definitely be a thing. Also, thank you to Mr. M. Don for the 5 gifted memberships. Kit Unknown Alliances, Yuri, sure. Kate Trim and Mackenzie Manny all got one, and a huge thanks to Max H for the $1. Appreciate it, guys. Hey, Max H says that's all I can afford today. Every penny counts. Thank you all. Thank you for helping, us keep these live streams ad free. David Connor Shover says Gatorade, nasty sweat until flavor added. That's actually reasonably accurate. And I can prove that because we talked with the daughter of one of the founders of Gatorade a couple of weeks back, and she talked about this.
That's interesting.
So yeah, it's literally the electrolytes are kind of nasty, right? It's like salt, potassium. None of it tastes very good on its own. You add a bunch of sugar and flavor to it, all of a sudden, it gets quite lovely and becomes the best-selling sports drink on the planet, and is known globally for, being this huge success. We don't want resin to be akin to Gatorade, because you should never drink the resin smoothie. I don't care. Now, it will bring boys to your yard, but that's the poison control, and those are boys you don't want to meet. Well, there might be girls or, other in there as well, but look, it fits the song. Work with me here.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough.
So, all right, what is kind of the base process then? Like, if we look at resin on just a fundamental floor level, with missing the special 11 herbs and spices that makes, some of the beautiful, amazing resins that you guys make, what is like the base requirements of chemicals that go into a 3D printing resin? Like, if you don't have this, it ain't gonna work.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the most basic formula is one monomer, one oligomer, a photoinitiator that reacts creates the polymerization process when the light gets turned on, and pigments and UV blockers to keep it from overreacting and keeping it dimensionally accurate, things like that.
Wait, so we need UV blockers to not have it basically catalyze that quickly?
Well, think of it like if you just had like the basic formula and your photoinitiators, monomer, oligomer, and nothing else.
Okay.
And you turned on the light, you're going to have radical polymerization, right? It's
not
going to be
it'll
very controlled.
Cascade, right?
It could cascade beyond what you want it to do, right? So what you want to do is you want it to react quickly and then stop.
Right. Yeah, you don't want it to keep reacting. That's fair.
Right, exactly. So when we're formulating, we formulate for the depth of cure. So like resins are actually designed to print at certain levels. So 30, 50, 100, so on and so forth. There's different pigment levels and things that we do to make sure that it performs its best at those different layer heights. And yeah, so that's a very high level overview. Now there's hundreds of monomers out there, and oligomers are the custom bit that really make it yours, I would say.
Okay.
So like when we buy, there's a handful. Bomar is a big oligomer manufacturer in the United States. We work with them. They make very unique stuff. But when you're buying an oligomer, you're choosing it for the properties that you want. And an oligomer is 2 or more monomers that have already been reacted together some kind of way.
I was just about to ask you. I'm like, what the hell? I look, I haven't taken chemistry since high school. Okay.
Yeah. No, believe me, I'm not a chemist either, by the way. I do have a bachelor in science, but I'm not a chemist, and I just work with them all the time, and I
Guy
pick their
that makes
brain.
resin says he's not a chemist. Okay, sure.
I'm not.
We believe you.
I believe. Trust me. You know what the funny thing is really just like anybody can be a chef and anybody can make a kick-ass chili. Anybody can make photopolymer. It's just, it has to be your shtick. I don't know how else to put it. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
You're buying ingredients, right, from a certain market, and you're mixing them together for a specific desired outcome. That's all it is. It's like a bartender. If you're a really kick-ass bartender, you're not distilling liquor, but you know how to use all the liquor in the bar. Maybe you are distilling. Like,
you might be.
Right. So it's like understanding the raw materials available to you and then mixing them together to create a cocktail that, your customers are going to enjoy. That's the whole game here. So no, you don't have to be a chemist to do what I do. I'm not a chemist. So that's proof of it. And, but I do hire chemists and I do work with them. All the vendors, they're all chemists. And they, they very high level teach me how to do things to, because they want to sell oligomers to me, right?
Right.
They want me to buy their monomers.
And you're just like, do you ever have this moment of whatever you just said for the past 5 minutes? It's just in one ear, out the other. 100%. Right?
Yeah. You got to pick the parts that, that you need at the time. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of that going on, but that's the basics of it. You have hundreds of monomers out there. Mm-hmm. Oligomer companies out there, which is the people that I would buy from, they create custom, unique oligomers, which are 2 or more monomers reacted together in some kind of way. A solvent's introduced, heat, a reactor, something like that. And they create these really, really thick peanut butter type stuff. And it has very unique properties. So it's you choose, you read your book on what you're trying to do. And then from there, you're doing it based on price. And then once it gets to us, we're mixing it with the right monomers to create to finish the reaction properly. Okay. Right. So you're putting it all together properly. So like the most basic thing is one monomer. We take one monomer. I already said iboa. So let's say I took iboa, I bought a drum of iboa and I mixed it with 30% oligomer. And then I threw in a percent of a photoinitiator. That's technically a photopolymer. Okay. And it will polymerize. It will create a polymer chain. But it's going to suck more than likely. So we might introduce 3, 4, 5 different monomers, all with different functionalities. And this is where shit can get complicated. And I don't know how in depth you want to go into this.
Dude, you might lose me and you might lose some of the viewers, but I'm sure there are people here that are like, get technical. So the only request that I will have is if you want to get technical, follow it up with the explain like I'm 5.
Sure. I'll try to do that.
Thank you.
All right. So a monomer, so a monofunctional monomer has one reactive chain that it can use. So think of like I use this analogy pretty often trying to explain this. Like think about like a bunch of kids or something in a gym in the dark, and then when you turn the lights on, you ask them all to hold hands, right? So if you're using difunctional monomers, you can use both hands. If you're using monofunctional monomers, and tie one hand behind their back and then have them all try and hold hands. So what's the benefit of monofunctionals? Well, if you have everyone with one hand try and hold hands, you're going to end up with a longer polymer chain. Whereas if you get higher functionality going on, then like if you have trifunctional, that's three links. So you end up with higher cure density. So like clusters, and you end up with harder polymers, and harder is faster reacting because you have more sites to grab onto, right? But generally more brittle, right? Yeah. So when you're talking about tough resins, monofunctional long chains with a lot of flexibility, like a polymer chains that can bend around without breaking. So that's kind of the functionality side of it, is how many links on the monomer. I forget what they call it. I think they just call it functional groups in chemistry. I'm pretty sure. Just functional groups, places for reactions to occur. Right. So that's what we're doing. We're choosing how reactive we want it to be, how functional we want our resin to be for the specific purpose. Right. And then we're pairing that with an oligomer that's going to allow it all to kind of tie together.
Okay.
All right. And generally speaking, yeah, that's what takes time and effort, because you want mostly fully polymerized, right? If there's anything left over, then that's the hazardous bits.
Yeah, well, that's the liquid inside of the shells of the resin, right? Where it's still kind of like a jelly substance because it didn't fully cure. Is that
Yeah,
is that kind of what
think of it
that
as the
is?
kids, and going back to the analogy, think of it as, the kids, you flip on the light, you tell everyone to hold hands, right?
Mhm.
There's going to be kids that don't find hands.
Right.
And then you have that, those are your unreacted monomers that are just loose and they're trapped in the matrix.
And that's a problem.
Right. It is a problem. They'll leach out,
Yep.
so, and that's where you get, potential skin hazards and things like that. So technically speaking, you want to create a formulation to make sure everyone has a hand to hold, if that makes sense.
John Carver says
Now,
cross-linking.
isn't part of that-
Is that cross-linking?
That's cross-linking, yeah.
Okay.
And I was gonna say too, like the getting everything reacted is why, like in industrial resins, they tend to be clear and not pigmented. The pigments in some cases are actually causing some of these problems, as I understand it, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, well, if you think of it, go back to depth of cure. The pigments are UV blockers.
Right.
So if you're blocking the UV from penetrating through, if the thicker the part, the less light that those inner parts are getting. So basically, you're relying on the cure that you're getting on the printer. So, and you're only going to get 75% maybe on the printer, depending if you're like really over curing it each layer. So everything that's post cure, you're really only post curing the surface. You're not, and that's where again thermal cure comes in, because when you thermal cure, you cure the whole thing.
Yeah, you're getting deeper into it.
Right. Well, we're putting in photo initiate. Well, no, I guess they're not photo initiators. They're initiators that are reacted at heat. So once you get above 200 degrees, then those initiators kick in, and then they start linking everything together. So it is actually, you just can't take out any resin that off the shelf and just throw it in the oven, and then you're going to get good results in thermal cure. That's not how it works. They have to be built to not only withstand the heat, but have the right initiators in there to start linking at the high temperatures.
Gotcha.
And so.
Okay. So,
but yes, to Will's point, yeah.
So then colorant might be added as that UV inhibitor. So like
No, that is most often.
I'm going to be a naughty boy here. I've never used your resin, or I've never used your branded resin.
Good.
We standardized on a competitor. I don't. It's weird for me to say competitor names in here when I'm talking with somebody else. So we standardized on a competitor a while back, and they have a material called nylon black. Now you'll probably know who it is.
Yeah.
And I always wondered if the color is deliberate, because I don't want the black. I don't really care about the color.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's dark makes it harder for me to cure it.
Mm-hmm.
The clear stuff, I've got it's back there. There's a spool on it. That's my curing trash can of science that has over 200 watts of UV LEDs in it.
Nice.
At 385 and 455 nanometers. So I've
so you're getting a broad spectrum cure,
Well, it's two different sets of LEDs, and the goal there is, because we used to have some Formlabs machines, and we still do run Formlabs resin from time to time, especially their casting resin. They have the best casting resin. I'm sorry. The best casting that I've tried.
Are you talking about lossless wax casting?
Yeah.
I got a good one you should try too.
Okay. Noted.
But anyway,
but yeah,
continue, yeah.
Their stuff cures way better at 385 than it does at 455. But I find that if I just turn it all on for all of them, there's no negative impact. And then for any parts that are reasonably thick, I grab the UV laser and just make sure that we can actually penetrate somewhat deeply. But I worry that, especially with like darker pigments, that the inside, like between the outer skins, that I can cure. So like, do I have a part that I can show that's not going to get me in trouble? Probably not. A part that's like a quarter of an inch thick, but it's hollow on the inside. I can get light to the inside. I'm worried about the between the skin of the outside and the inside, that might be a little bit jelly. And because we deliver parts to clients, I don't necessarily want there's like this anxiety problem for me of, well, wait a minute, what if something happens and it's not fully cured? Like, other than over curing the piss out of it, which of course then turns it into a brittle mess, often
Yeah.
with regular photopolymer resins. How the heck do I know where my like sweet spot is without just risking it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a loaded question, really, because
I know.
there's no way to answer it. Like you have, once you start, I mean, the good news is once you start the reaction, it doesn't stop. So it's like you did your post cure. It's actually going to continue to cure and link until it's done, which is when you say it's brittle and nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you were to take it and put it outside, that's like weather testing. It's like how many cycles, how many seasons can I get through before it really turns to
Here in
dust?
Florida, not many.
Yeah. So I think you're probably fine just making sure that you cure it, best you can. If you're getting to the point where it's fully cured
Mm-hmm.
and it's brittle, then you're not using a tough enough resin, right? Because it should be fully cured and still tough, right? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for fully linked polymers that are still tough.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why, like, again, I'm circle back to thermal curing, but yeah, believe me, if your product is getting fully linked, all the groups are attached, and you end up with a brittle product, that's just because that's the polymer that is being created, a brittle polymer. If it's not, the gooey center is probably what's keeping it tough for you.
Okay. So the creamy nougat center is the toughness.
It's probably what's giving you a little bit of that elongation,
I've never had we did a very big project out of this nylon material. It was 20 bottles.
Okay.
Which for a small shop, and they were all Jupiter size. Like I had to buy 2 Jupiters to do the job because the parts were just that functionally large.
Yeah.
The fun problem that we ran into was the files were not right, and none of us knew until we finished the job. It was a bummer because it was supposed to be a much bigger job than that. And I'm looking at the PO for that job. I keep that PO up with the reminder of always make sure the files the client sends are the files the client actually wants, because they sent us the wrong files and none of us knew.
Yeah.
But that one we deliberately sent somewhat green parts, right? I cured them for about 10 minutes and then I sent it to them and said, all right, the longer you cure this, the weaker the resin is going to get. This should be a totally safe level of cure, but I'm not guaranteeing a damn thing. You got, because like these parts had crazy intricate detail and they were big. I mean, you're talking full build volumes on Elegoo Jupiters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, it's all about
choosing
choosing the right resin for your application. That's what it comes down to,
Okay.
And it's usually a price battle, honestly, most of the time, because you're still going to be in a price battle, and those more brittle resins are typically hard, fast, and inexpensive.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but I've got some generic resin. In fact, I'm going to get rid of it today. I'm very excited. The Better 3/4 brother, we recently got him an FDM printer for his birthday, and I'm giving him a spare resin printer and a bunch of resin. And this is going to bring up a question for me because this resin has been sitting unopened for a couple of years.
You're probably still fine.
Okay, because people tell me that resin's got an expiration date, and I'm not certain that I believe this.
Well, think about it. So here's the thing about this. So we put 1 year unopened on our labels. I think most people, it's kind of standardized to do that, because we don't know until it's been a year, really. I mean, we can age test things a little bit by, introducing them to heat and cold and heat and cycling it and things like that, and to try and get them to react and to see if it's going to do that. And we do those things. Yeah. But really, you create a formulation. You're mixing these monomers. Every polymer that you make, every new resin you make is a new polymer that never existed before ever, right? Which is why this is so fun and cool thing to do. So it's like I have 50 monomers and I have 20 oligomers, and I can make a different combination every time. And then I'll make something for a customer and they'll go, hey, what's the shelf life on this? And I go, well, I just made it.
I don't know. You tell me.
Right. Like, I will
head,
guarantee it for a year, but hopefully just print with it and be done with it, and we'll buy more,
Right. Because in my head, it's been sitting in an airtight, liquid tight, light tight bottle.
Yeah.
as long as you properly mix it, you properly shake it like it owes you money. You want to shake this a lot because it's
Yeah.
absolutely separated over this time frame.
Absolutely.
But
It's probably fine though. Yeah.
I can't imagine that something goes wrong here, and I don't know. But in my head, nothing. There's like nothing to me that could be a potential problem. And Mr. Chris Catlett, of course, in the resin world, most people know of him, said, if anything, you can always add some more photo initiator. Because yes, Chris, everybody has photo initiator laying around.
Could I offer that for sale? I can put it up.
Yeah, can I just buy a bottle of photo initiator for my resin? Ooh, let me just get a little bit. I'm just gonna add it to my coffee in the morning. I'm gonna feel all bright and chipper.
Yeah. Other than it being separated, the only thing that's gonna really affect because I told you before, once the reaction starts, it never really stops.
Yeah.
So as long as during the bottling process, it wasn't introduced to any light
UV,
or anything like that, and it was a good, clean bottling process and everything was smooth, it's probably fine. And I would just, like you said, shake it up really good and then filter it. Because if there are any like little chunks in there of polymerized product, you can filter it out. It should still be fine. So yeah, with shelf life, honestly, if you have a bottle, I mean, 5-10 years,
Yeah,
I have no idea.
In theory, right? In theory, it should be totally fine. In practice, I've been like too afraid to use, and it's like it is some generic, no name, whatever resin that comes in a metal bottle, right? How long has it been since companies used metal
like
bottles?
an aluminum?
Yeah.
Like an aluminum bottle, yeah.
So it's old resin. But I'm
Yeah.
like, look, if it works for him, it lets me get rid of crap that's literally been sitting on my shelf. And if it doesn't, I've got some newer stuff that I can give to him. And now we all have learned, right?
Yeah. There you go.
And he's going to get a Anycubic Mono X, the Gen 1, the old machine.
I have like 4 of those still running. Those things are like tanks, man. They just keep going.
Yeah. Well,
I've done so much R&D on those things. I had to turn to be fair, I turned the percent power down to like 70% or even 50% in some of them because it was burning up the resin really quick. But those were great workhorse machines. I don't like the new M5S, or is it is that the right name? The new M5S?
We standardized on Elegoo years ago, and
well, I love Elegoo Ultras, so
yeah, I've got the OG Saturn, a bunch of RGB Marses that still refuse to die, and a pair of Gen 1 Saturns, which are better than the Gen 2 Saturn, and I will accept no arguments to that because it has a door. The freaking lift-off lids are stupid. They require so much extra vertical space, and when you're trying to do this in a print farm application, vertical space is like the second most important space that I have here.
Yeah.
Why are you printing with your lids on?
Yeah, he doesn't even print with lids on. Neither do I.
Florida.
I mean, that's right. I live in the desert, so I have I did not realize how optimal my environment was for resin until a while ago. But like,
dude, there's dust and other it's not worth it. And I like having the door because the door just opens and it's great. I love it. It's beautiful. But yeah, I'm not gonna keep. We have 13 resin printers, and they're in my office with me. So I'm not gonna be keeping their lids off. That is a
no, that's fair. See, I have a print room.
Hazard.
I had to get all that stuff out of my area because it was impacting my asthma. So.
Gotcha. Also, Russ, thank you for the $20. That's greatly appreciated, sir. Thank you so much for supporting this awesome talk. This is such a cool talk. I love it when the people that I'm talking to are like light years more intelligent than I am about something that is so specific, and I can just sit here and enjoy somebody else just info dumping about the things they're incredibly passionate about. And that's what I love so much about this. So yeah, seriously.
Appreciate the compliment.
You are clearly incredibly passionate about this beyond the fact that you use it to make money. You do this because you want to create something special, and you and the Atlas 3D team did create some pretty special resin. Can we talk about that really awesome resin?
Yeah, which one do you want to talk about?
I think it's got Hercules, man. That the Hercules resin was a 3.5-year process.
Okay.
And one of the things that's been great about working with Craig is it's almost like working with AI today, where I just kind of say, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for, man. And he's like, all right. And then he just starts throwing resin at me, and we just iteratively try back and forth and back and forth. And the Hercules development, the original version of Hercules, there's a video in the original Vulcan Kickstarter where I throw resin off my balcony, and I'm like, this is the first version of Hercules. And it was. And that has no chemical similarity at all to the final version of Hercules. That's
Yeah,
it's
I
not
don't even
even
think
in the
they
same
share raw
family.
material.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
been a long
has,
process.
I think that's actually the best part about this hobby space right now is that there are no real, everything's still open. We're still in the exploration phase of like the best product market fit. Aside from like price, everyone's still competing on price.
Yeah.
And for us, like we are support monkeys. We put sticks on things. We print a lot of things,
You
but I
literally
don't
do
have
just
the.
put sticks on things. That's so
Yeah,
true.
it
Well,
is. This is what we do. But like we also are passionate about 3D printing, and we cared about safety, and we cared about the product and the quality. And the thing is that for us, the partnership with Craig has enabled us to have influence over that because Craig's passion and his infrastructure, and he cares about the community. I mean, he has his own Discord. He pops up in ours. He, I do not feel like you get that kind of engagement from the larger chemical market players out of Asia. And that is the best part about working with Craig is that like, and it's exemplified in Hercules. It was a 3+ year process where, Craig just kept churning away at it and he was totally willing to accept we're not quite there yet. What do you want? I'm not really sure, but we're not quite there yet. He's like, you know what? You're right. And he just kept grinding until we hit gold with the thermal stuff. And he's like, you've got to try this. And
Yeah, that wasn't for
yeah.
for the record. The whole thermal thing was a late comer to the game because I ended up I hired a new or we hired, I should say, we hired a new chemical engineer. So he really brought us to the next level when it comes to that stuff. So I can't take credit for the path that we ended up going down because I worked on Hercules, what he wanted Hercules to be for so long, and I could do it, but I couldn't. There was always like, if you look at the pyramid, there was always one pyramid missing. Like I want tough and fast, but it's too expensive. Or I can make it fast and cheap, but it's not tough enough.
Tough,
it's not a Hercules formula. So it's like you're constantly trying to square that, and that was the struggle. And like I said, when we brought on some new employees for other, we also manufacture UV adhesives and things like that. So he was brought on for that. And I'm like, hey, also, can you help me here? And he's like, and he started teaching me this whole realm of formulation processes, a whole different way to make chili that I never even thought was possible. And it was awesome. So
was it the Kevin way of making chili?
The Kevin?
That's an Office reference.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the
I could say
show.
Brian Baumgartner, but I don't think that's going to hit as well as Kevin and his chili.
So yeah, it was. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The best way to describe this is it took a little bit of time to get from zero to hero for Hercules.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly right. Yeah. And in the meantime, we were still doing an iterational process with Vulcan, the standard resin. And, that had a whole different set of properties that we were trying to fight. And when, as a United States manufacturer trying to price compete, we have to be very careful with the raw materials we choose. And because I'm going to have to buy them in bulk. So it's like, all right, we're going to move forward and I have to put $10,000 on the table to buy this stuff in, 4 drums at a time. And it has to work. So by the time we get to that point, it's got to be like, all right, is it good enough? And then going back to what he was talking about before, which was kind of a big pain in the butt during the process, is he lives in Nevada, this perfect environment for the temperature controlled everything. And we didn't even realize that. So he's printing all the time and everything's coming out great. And I'm like, man, I'm not getting the same results that you are, but that's good. And it's like, so we can go down the same path. It took us a while to figure it out because in my lab, it's 70 degrees and his print room is probably 90 plus.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of resin, but.
I mean, routinely it's 100 degrees. I have actually killed more printers from heat because my print room's 100 degrees and I did not realize
that's the most offensive thing about
your
setup is how damn hot it is.
Yeah. I mean, literally, right? Especially in the summer, like right now, Pahrump has been hitting 118 degrees, man.
No.
And so,
no,
like my
that's
hangar
offensive.
is not air conditioned. and that's where the print form is. Like it's in the hanger. So like, yeah. And it's contained. It's contained because I have to also insulate it because in the winter the deserts are very chilly.
Yeah.
So that means when those printers are running, my print room is probably pushing 120 degrees.
Yeah. That's
which
crazy.
is great for the resin. It's fantastic. I have
Sure, you're reducing the
phenomenal
viscosity all
print.
the way down. Nice, great,
Oh, it's
nice, fast
great.
reactivity.
Mm-hmm. It's delightful.
Yeah, but it's not great for iteration. Was my point? It's not great for testing because it's like
right.
we were trying to sell to a much wider market than than Pahrump, Nevada.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was certainly a challenge with that.
It was a learning experience. I do apologize.
Yeah,
but that's what business is about. Is about those learning experiences. Also, thank you, Thomas, for the 5 gifted memberships. Ji Young Shung, Taylor, Jody, Seek, and Ricky B. I have to learn to read the names before I say them because I might have said somebody's name in a previous chat and got made fun of because it was Kach, big Kach, and I pronounced exactly the way that you think I pronounced it. It was funny. I've had to learn to read people's names before I pronounce them now. So all right, my atmosphere here in Florida being, it is 82.4 degrees Fahrenheit and 54% ambient humidity.
Yeah, I was gonna say the humidity's got to be a factor there.
Yes, I can print in the winter. It's roughly the same heat in the winter because Florida, and my prints are they're so much easier. More specifically, I don't know if this is somehow related to chemistry or not. Cleaning the parts is easier when the humidity is lower. We find that the alcohol works better when there's less ambient humidity. I do not have anything other than like anecdotally, the parts that I print in the winter are easier to clean than the ones that I don't print in the winter. But I've never understood that.
Same resin and everything.
More volatile. Alcohol is more volatile in a dry, hot environment versus a humid environment, and it's probably related to that.
It's flashing off faster.
Yeah, and that's got to be related to how it's breaking up the monomers and shit that are on the exterior part of the part.
Good theory as any.
So yeah, so it literally, Tarzman says the same thing. It's possibly due to the alcohol, not the resin itself. I recently transitioned away from Mean Green. It was my go-to cleaner, Mean Green at full concentration because we're not a bunch of babies around here, to Denatured alcohol, where I feel the need to smile when I'm buying that much ethanol so they can see I have all of my teeth and I'm clearly not distilling alcohol because this is Florida. And we got some damn fine moonshine out here. That is all I'm saying about that. But yeah, like I bought 5 gallons recently from Rural King, which is a redneck Walmart. Yes, it does get worse. But Rural King is awesome. I love Rural King. But they have $20 a gallon, which is great for ethanol. They're like, what are you doing with all of this? I said, I can give you the answer, but lying to you is easier. So which would you like? They said, well, now I kind of want to know both. I said, well, I'm either going to distill alcohol or I'm using it to clean 3D printed resin parts. She's like, oh, okay, I know which one's the truth. And it is so much better. It is so much better than Mean Green. My God.
Yeah, for sure.
Wait till you try acetone.
No.
Acetone,
like
you got 30 seconds
acetone
flat.
Is great.
If you use acetone, you got like 30 seconds in that print before you like.
Yeah, but see, like I keep a 5-gallon bucket of denatured alcohol and a 5-gallon bucket of acetone.
Yeah.
And if I know I need, if I'm like being slow, I'm going to use my denatured alcohol because I don't want to be in a rush. But if I really want to clean that all the way to the part, like acetone, when you clean a part in acetone, what you get at the other end almost feels cured. That is how much it cleans.
Isn't that because you're literally
melting
the surface
away?
Yeah, you're literally melting the resin. Dimensional accuracy be damned.
Like I suppose if you do it like
works.
super quick, you probably
I just dunk it.
Yeah,
I
like a
have a
quick dunk.
5-gallon bucket with a 5-gallon colander. I fill the colander with parts. I dip the colander into the 5-gallon bucket. I lift it up, and when I come out the other end, everything is good. If
Yeah.
I do this with denatured alcohol, I put the thing into the bucket and then I swish it a little bit,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
because it needs to agitate,
Yeah, it needs to
and
agitate
then
a
I
little
pull it out.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. Highly recommend 5-gallon bucket, 5-gallon colander.
All right,
Noted.
there
I
you
don't
go.
use the colander, so Mr. Chris Catlett is in our Patreon Discord, which is available at the $10 tier and higher. Yes, I went ahead and used that as a call to action, as you do. And go ahead and like the video. We got 82 people watching, only 32 likes. That is, we got to pump those, the rookie numbers, got to pump those numbers up. When Chris is like, Grant, stop using mean green. Go get alcohol. I'm like, all right, I'll go get some alcohol. He's like, all right, go get a 5-gallon bucket and one of the twist off lids. He was totally right.
So for the record, if you do heat up mean green to or any real good degreaser,
Yeah.
Heat it up to like 120 or something in a sauna cleaner, it is pretty efficient.
Yeah,
and
it's
if you're
good.
worried about all that VOCs, then it's not a bad way to go, but it's not going to beat denatured alcohol.
No, it doesn't. The thing I do like about mean green is the resin falls out of solution. So I can easily pipe it off with like a peristaltic pump or something like that to then cure later on. Whereas the resin, in my experience, does not fall out of solution. And alcohol, although Chris has shown
You
it
get
to
a
me
nice
before,
white muck.
Yeah,
It does.
it
It
turns
falls
into
out.
some. Eventually, sure, but
Yeah.
there's some chemicals that you can add to it that'll just cause it to precipitate out anyways. And I think we're gonna do a video on that at some point. But Reth, who happens to be in California, or knows that you can't get denatured alcohol in California, you can't. So there are some states where you can't buy denatured alcohol, otherwise known as ethanol. It's just ethanol. It's the same thing. I don't know why we call it denatured alcohol instead of just calling it ethanol, but whatever. Like if you happen to live in a state that doesn't allow denatured alcohol, what would be a good cleaning chemical to use?
Well, isopropyl alcohol.
It's expensive though.
It is, but
Yeah.
you know, you can reuse it and filter it. It's pretty much the only thing I use. I use high purity IPA, and I like it because it's aggressive enough to clean the part. But if I forget about it, which I do all the time, like it's not going to kill the part. I've left it in for 24 hours before, and I still had a nice part at the end of it. So that's what I use. That's what I've always used that since the beginning. Denatured alcohol, ethanol is probably better, but you know, I have more access to the IPA anyway because we have to buy it.
Right, you can buy it by the drum, where the average person isn't, buying it by the drum.
Right.
We actually have an answer as to why it's called denatured instead of just ethanol, because they add poison to it that you can't.
Oh, so you don't
out.
drink it? So you don't drink it or something? Is that
so you
it?
can't distill it out. Denatured ethanol contains.
That makes all the sense in the world. Somebody's coming in and making it worse, so you're not happy. I get it.
It contains
like
toluene.
Toluene. That's interesting. Yeah. So somebody stepped in.
Because of course it would be that. How do we get people to stop drinking it? I don't know. Put poison in it.
Let's poison it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna play the F around and find out principle.
Right. Then it becomes the Darwinism effect.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
People are still drinking it. They're not there long.
No wonder they lose their damn teeth.
That's such a weird thing to do.
Rose Kindred's given us their setup, saying it's slightly dirty resin, simple green, water, and or water. Let it dry, cure, cheap to reuse. Is there a good like system that a average everyday starter, someone who wants to get into resin but doesn't want to deal with 16 different stages, what would be a good way for them to start being able to deal with resin in a meaningful way on the post-processing side of it?
Yeah, I actually spent a lot of time on this, and that's why I did mention degreasers. If you go to any hardware store, industrial degreasers seem to be the best, and you can buy a cheap sonic cleaner, that can handle pretty decent sized parts. That's what I think is the best. Honestly, heating it up to 120 degrees and doing 5-10 minutes in a sonic cleaner.
Okay.
And then maybe doing multiple of those, one dirty, one clean. Maybe, again, I don't know how much your investment is. And you're just cleaning off the degreaser itself in water. and then letting the part dry. I've had good success with that. Is it the best? Probably not. I mean, I think honestly, soaking in alcohol is probably going to get you the best clean part.
Okay.
But it is certainly a functional way to do it, and it does work. And I cleaned a couple of years ago. I was printing for Will, and I cleaned hundreds and hundreds of parts that way, and it worked out pretty well. So
I will also say that like the I still strongly believe in alcohols of any kind, and you don't need to go all the way to the 5-gallon bucket, but you should start in a bucket, no matter what. That way you can like contain it,
Well, the
and you
five
can
gallon
take
bucket,
it, and you can.
they're cheap, they're ubiquitous, and for $12 you get one of those screw off tops.
Yeah.
It solves the problem.
And then for
Yeah.
people who have apartments or smaller areas, what you do is you don't clean in your house. You take your bucket outside. And what's even better, especially if you are in an area that's not cloud covered all the time, get a clear bucket.
yeah, cure it out at the same time. Yeah.
Like, because see, what ends up happening is you clean your part in your alcohol that's in a clear bucket, and you take your part out of the alcohol, you put your lid on, and you leave your bucket outside, and you go take your nice clean part. Now you pat it dry and you do your post cure, whatever. And then that bucket, just leave it out there and let it cure in the damn sun. And then take your bucket in later. And like that will extend your alcohol.
That
It'll
doesn't
precipitate,
wait. That doesn't turn it into the forbidden Jello.
No.
Well, that depends how used it is. Eventually, it will turn into that. For the white, you're talking about that white muck.
Yeah, but the whole buck. So I have some very dirty resin and resin water, or not resin water, resin alcohol. Yeah, if I try to cure it right now, the whole thing's gonna turn into a brick of Jello.
Yeah, if you let it settle out, it should be fine. But I
Okay.
still think it has to be pretty dirty to get to that
Yeah.
point.
The average user is just not going to get there. We're talking like, we're not talking about the average merchant here. Just like if we're a regular person who's like, hey, I want to get into it, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm getting my part all the way clean. What do? Go buy a 1-gallon bucket of alcohol, and you with a lid that screws on, and do your cleaning not where you live, like not where you sleep, not where you eat.
Yeah, I
Go
made
into your
that mistake
backyard, your front
once.
yard, like whatever, it doesn't matter. And just keep your clean station as a self-contained thing, and that's separate from your cure station. Like it's just, your cure station can still be inside. Like just
Mhm.
clean your alcohol stuff outside,
Yeah,
bring your clean
garage.
part back, yeah, wherever.
Yeah, I made that mistake of cleaning the resin parts initially inside. I'm like, my entire house smells like a
3D printer.
distillery. No,
Yeah.
it just smells like the ethanol.
Oh well, yeah, I mean that's true.
And Justin Miller actually is his method is what I used to use too. The little pickle containers that you can get on Amazon with the little bucket that goes inside of it. They're adorable, and they're great if you're doing very small runs of very small parts. They're terrible when you're doing, parts that are 15, 16 inches long. But yeah, the pickle container that I have is always full of isopropyl alcohol, because I use it for the wax resins. For rings and that kind of thing, because it is perfectly sized for that. I would love to see more purpose-built containers for resin 3D printing, right? Because like I've got there's a little tiny wash and cure there. I'm fairly certain it's broken. I need to figure that out. And then there's a big wash and cure plus up there somewhere. It's up there. But like now that I have the bucket of alcohol, I don't even know if I care about those wash and cure stations anymore. I'm not certain that I need it, but
Yeah.
they
You
are good
don't.
for first timers, right?
I agree that they're good for first timers. I never liked the wash and cure stations because after a while, if you're using it on the regular, that little spinny, at the
It
bottom
breaks.
just mixes it all up into crap again.
Yeah.
Like I want it all to settle to the bottom, and I want it to chill out, and then I'll just soak it. I get the idea behind it, right? You're going to kind of agitate the part and all that jazz, but that only works for like, I don't know, a handful of prints, and then all of a sudden you're just making your print dirty.
Right.
And so if you have a number of them, 2 at minimum, then I guess that's fine. But I always just liked, just give me a bucket with alcohol in there, and I'll put it in there, and I'll leave it for 5-10 minutes, and then that's good. So and then all the things just settle to the bottom, and I can use that for a good long time. So
Interesting. Yeah, I have noticed that. It's why I liked Mean Green, because it instantly settled to the bottom. It fell out of solution so quickly, and then peristaltic pump, just pump it all out.
Yeah, that
Problem
makes sense.
solved. But yeah, Mean
Makes sense.
Green. I don't find that alcohol does the same thing. I find
does-
that it just doesn't.
It's a much slower process and probably not as good, but
But see,
Yeah.
the thing with alcohol too, though, is you can miss, and this is another one of these areas where I'm now realizing how optimal my environment is. My alcohol buckets sit on concrete. So during the day, the liquid gets very hot. At night, it gets cold. Cold, I mean, and things are more likely to precipitate out when you're moving back and forth between those states.
Yeah, cold doesn't happen here. I'm fairly
That's fair.
positive that cold is not in the vocabulary of the state of Florida. But I keep my bucket inside. If I use it, I go out to the garage and I use it and I turn on all the fans, and just blow the fumes outside. But yeah, I would love to see like purpose built buckets with built-in colanders, right? Just like a system that works. And maybe that's something that I should work on. I don't know. That's gonna be very
There's never been a better
expensive.
time.
Well, it's very, very
Sorry.
expensive to develop a large product like that. Your mold's going to be expensive. Your MOQ is going to be expensive. It's minimum order quantity for those that don't know. And I'm just not in that business, right? I'm not in the business of dropping $100,000 on an idea that is pretty much going to be damn near impossible
Brother,
to
that's what
patent.
Kickstarter's for.
Yeah. But it's going to be a very difficult thing to patent and protect. And of course, we're currently not seeing any issues with patents going on right now in this community. No, you guys haven't seen any news about patents lately, have you? No, I certainly haven't. I don't have 3 meetings with different patent attorneys next week to get an actual understanding of what the heck is going on.
I'm sorry, I had to go to the bathroom. What was your idea that you might want to patent?
Well, I mean, I'm making a public disclosure of it, so it wouldn't matter anyways. But it's just like a more dedicated cleaning bucket solution where there is a dedicated colander that fits in with a way to remove it from the bucket, a way for it to hang and drip dry, a way that if I was really good at it, I would have no overall exposure to resin.
Got it. Yeah. So like automated post-processing, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Someone's going to do it. I mean, it's going to come out at some point.
Dr. Dave's workshop. I sense sarcasm. Oh, really? I'm so glad you sensed it. So Rose
laid it on pretty thick.
Oh, dude, so thick you might say it's oatmeal. Rose Kindred says, I only like the hay gear system because you can drain the wash into another tub without touching it, but still overpriced when my homemade is better. I like the way that Formlabs did it with their whole farm setup. There are ways to do it, but if there was also a way that bucket would have a built-in filter or a way to dose to precipitate out resin, like my goal with resin from day one has always been minimize exposure. It's why we literally coined the phrase resin is toxic. We are bringing out merch with this. We're going to have lab coats with it embroidered, which I know technically violates the lab coat, but it's fine. It's more of a joke. Yeah, but like we have a whole thing that we do on the channel with resin is toxic. And if we can reduce people's exposure to resin, then we're answering a health concern here. We're not really making money. We're answering it for public health and safety, at least in my eyes.
Sure, that's a good way to do it.
Tech Jeeper says resin is delicious. Don't do that. Don't remember if your milkshake, your resin milkshake will bring all the boys to the yard, and those boys are the poison control. You don't want to meet poison control this way. Remember, kids, never meet medical professionals professionally. It's not the way you want to meet medical professionals.
Yeah.
Dr. Dave's workshop says, as a chemist, I greatly appreciate the PSA about toxicity. You want to know a pet peeve of mine? I would love to know from your perspective as a manufacturer. Water washable resin. And how it is effectively touted as, oh, you can wash it in your sink. You can't wash it in your sink. It will kill the fish. And we like the fish. Don't kill the fish.
It'll kill the groundwater. I mean, you don't want to like... I actually refuse to manufacture water washable. I get it requested all the time. the answer is and probably will remain no, because I don't trust the average consumer to not wash it down the sink. And that's just the way it is. At least with the iso alcohol, you're forced to kind of do it a certain way or you won't get results.
Yep.
And yeah, absolutely not. I hate water washable. And I don't even like the chemistry of it. We did make some to play around with it and just to learn about it. It's actually quite a bit.
Can you
nastier.
share what makes water washable?
Yeah, well, it's just the solubility of the materials.
Okay.
So there's at the oligomer side of it, they will have certain products that they can make. I don't have a great understanding of this, but basically that make it water soluble and break down in water.
Okay.
Once it's cured. So that's my understanding of it. It's a different oligomer that I buy. It's a different sheet that I have to, a different raw material set. And it's just what you can clean it up. And actually, technically speaking, there's going to be a certain solvent that's going to be perfect for any UV photopolymer. So like technically speaking, iso is good for one, maybe your ethanol will be better for another, right? It's not like a universal thing. There's going to be one thing that's
except
ideal
apparently
for that.
acetone.
Yeah, well, acetone is universally very aggressive. So
yeah, acetone is me when the Cuban side of me comes out. Universally aggressive.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, but as far as most of the raw materials were more hazardous than I'd like to have in the plant, and obviously there's the EPA concerns and the rest of it. So we don't touch it. I probably won't touch it.
I have septic and well out here, and water washable resin will literally poison my groundwater. And for those that don't know how groundwater works in Florida, it comes out of an aquifer. There's a big underground lake. I mean, there's a few of them, but there's a big underground lake. Fun fact, my tap water is the exact same minus filtration as Zephyr Hills bottled water. One of the big bottling plants is in Zephyr Hills, Florida, which is 15 minutes away from me. We are on the same aquifer. So
nice. Sounds like you got another business plan lined up.
Yeah, totally. Actually, we service the bottling plant. They have their bottling machines are so old. And their labeling machines are old. They use wooden gears.
Oh wow!
And that's deliberate, because the wooden gear will shear off and get destroyed before the entire machine eats itself alive. Well, those wood gears are impossible to get. They had one left. They brought it over. We reproduce it out of PLA. I think now they're going to transition to PETG because they're finding that PLA is kind of right on the edge of what they want. They want it to fail earlier. PLA tends to just shatter, where PETG will slowly yield before it shatters. But we've been messing around with different polymers for that. We're not going resin, sorry.
That's fine. I get it.
They're dead solid. Like and these gears, they're like 2 or 3 inches thick. Sorry, I'm a guy. I have to overestimate that. And maybe 4 inches in diameter, right? And so they're not all that big, but they weigh like 150 grams of material.
That's a really unique application for 3D. I wouldn't.
It's perfect. Yeah. I still feel like if they just got like a cheap CNC, they could probably just CNC it themselves. But these are big businesses, and big businesses don't care. They pay for results. They pay for speed. They don't really care about how you do it. They just care that you're solving the problem. So,
sure. Yeah, that's great.
I agree with Rose Kindred here that water washable is nice to some extent, because you can let that dirty water evaporate, leaving you with just the BS that you can cure out and then basically theoretically safely get rid of it, right?
Well, first of all, if you're going to compare isopropyl alcohol volatility to water volatility, a bucket of iso is going to be gone in, I don't know, 10x faster.
Yeah, easily.
I can't, first of all, as a personal thing, I can't recommend that you take and put VOCs outside, right? So I can't recommend doing that, just for the record. But if you were to do it, and you were to take a bucket of water, and you were to take a bucket of isopropyl alcohol and figure out which one's gone first, the iso is going to be gone
easy,
so much faster.
Yeah, so much faster.
So, I don't know if that holds water, but also you could just, filter out either one. I don't know. I don't see any need to use water.
No,
I understand that there's probably more safety precautions with isopropyl alcohol, but I think it's the better way to go all around. Also, the chemistry is for any kind of properties is going to be better, at least to the current state of polymer chemistry. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and make an argument against water washable. I know there's probably going to be benefits to it. Just
I'll
messing
make it
around.
for you. I'm not a manufacturer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't have an issue with water washable resin. I have an issue with the way that it is presented. And it is that has always been my issue. It is not resin in general. I have issues with I don't have issues with resin in general. I have issues with the way that it is presented by manufacturers. I want warning labels akin to the warning label on cigarettes in the UK and the EU. That is what I want on resin bottles because people don't understand it. And the amount of times that I have shown graphic images on Print Fix Friday from people having their skin melt off because they got resin on their skin is ridiculous. There should not be but one. It's gonna happen once, and then everybody needs to learn, but nobody learns. And it frustrates me so much.
Yeah, it is frustrating. Believe me, we struggle against this too. And so when it comes to labeling, since we're talking about labeling, we're as a United States manufacturer, we have to be adherent to GHS, which is a globally harmonized system for classification and labeling of chemicals. Okay. Now, it's not global and it's not harmonized, and I'll say that 1,000 times over because I guarantee you anything
it's marketing.
Anything that comes out of China is not going to be labeled properly. It's just not. And their SDSs are garbage as well. I'm not trying to shit on China, but they just don't. They don't adhere. So
I had this discussion with some filament manufacturers. Hell, I had it with Mitch just last week that if your material's not pure, I want to know what makes it not pure. I don't need to know the concentration, but I need to know what's in it.
Yeah. So yeah, when it comes to like the labeling, there should be the first 2 sections of a safety data sheet on the label. That means it's displaying the signal word, which is either warning or danger. It's displaying what the hazards are in a very brief handful of statements, and what those hazards are, and then the pictograms that go with them. There should be the first 2 sections. It should be at least a small paragraph of information given to you on the label if you're going to sell these materials. And if you find anything that most of them won't have it, you'll be lucky to find a pictogram on some of them.
Yeah, I'm pulling one of these old. I'm gonna cover the brand name, but I'm pulling one of the old bottles, and this is one of the old metal bottles. It's got some of the warnings, but
so it'll. Really. I'm trying to think of
I want big, obvious if you don't do this right, this can kill you levels of warnings because. I know that fundamentally, if you get it on your skin and you get it off reasonably fast, you're okay enough, right?
Sure.
You're okay enough, but that doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah, well, of course you shouldn't do it. But also, it's really important that you understand and your listeners understand that all resins are not created equal.
No, not even close.
There are so many different levels of hazards that you can play with in this realm. And again, if your manufacturer is not labeling it properly, then you don't know what you're dealing with. So you always have to deal with it like it's the worst thing on the planet. And that's the way you should deal with it, because it's like there are certainly resins that are methacrylated and have very limited hazards to them. Every resin out there, though, it doesn't matter what it is, it's always a skin one sensitizer, always. So it's a dermal hazard regardless of what it is. But then it steps up from there to oral hazard, and it steps up into inhalation hazards, and it goes down the line from there. So yeah, you can use some really nasty chemicals. Yeah. And I always tell the story that when we first started doing 3D, I got into 3D Resin Solutions, started this company because I literally wanted to print my D&D characters. Right. That's what I was all excited to do, was create a resin that wasn't brittle that I could print my D&D characters with. Okay. Well, when we first started investigating the raw materials used in the oligomers and the monomers that we would need to create a 3D printing resin, we immediately had to cross off half the raw materials. So I'm just not bringing these into the building.
Right.
It's like there's skull and crossbones on some of these raw materials. That's like the worst. That's as bad as it gets. Yeah. Right?
Skull and crossbones, you don't mess around with that stuff,
Right. And so but they give you the best properties. So the question is if you're buying, if you're buying a tough resin that's super fast and super tough, like you're printing in under 3 seconds normal exposure, and it's not labeled properly, you are dealing with probably some pretty nasty hazards. Okay, just be aware of that. And if you're paying, not a lot of money for it, then you're definitely. So fast hard resins, not so much. Honestly, don't get it on your skin. It's a dermal hazard, all that jazz. But when you start getting into really unique properties, high elongation products, tough materials that are printing very fast, you're talking about monofunctional monomers. Some of them I can't use in the United States, just so you guys are aware.
Jesus.
Of this. Okay. So like there's what's called SNURs, SNUR on a lot of the monomers in 3D. It's a significant new use restrictions, meaning they're like,
No, too dangerous, homie.
Right.
You ain't allowed.
Right. So I could buy it and manufacture it to sell to a B2B, to a business who's capable of handling it properly.
Yeah, they have the proper chemical handling licenses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I can't, if it has a snur on it, I can't manufacture and sell it via Amazon. But I guarantee you, everybody else is. Okay. Because they're not sending it in as a raw material. They're sending it as a finished good. Okay. So these are things that, and I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying, like,
I'm trying to scare people. No, I think people need to be scared because it's the only way that people will start respecting this.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we say, oh, you're probably fine, right? No, this stuff, you will become allergic to it. If you are not allergic to it,
if you're not handling it properly,
you will become allergic to it. If you are breathing in the resin fumes, your lungs will start to get irritated over the years. I know people that cannot be in the same room as resin anymore because of exposure and contact allergens. Don't mess with it, right? If you want to use it, by all means, please do. But understand the safety protocols that you need to take so you don't get sick. Because these type of sicknesses, your average hospital will not figure out. They're not going to understand that you do 3D printing with resin. That's not in their list of things they ask patients when they come in and their lungs are swollen, their throat is swollen, and they don't know what's going on. So I feel like a healthy amount of fear is good in the beginning, right? I want people in bunny suits when they first start, right? I want it done proper. Then you can slowly, as you learn to properly handle it, you get the respect for it. You can reduce your PPE to a more reasonable level so that you understand it. Don't just start by dipping your friggin' hand into the vat to get a broken part.
I've seen that so many times.
Oh my God, yes.
I've seen people on Facebook stick their hands into dirty IPA and to take their part out. That is the fastest way to get sensitized to anything. It's
the fastest way to get out, to get resin in your skin,
in your system. It opens up your pores. Do not ever, if you get resin on yourself, okay, wipe it off with a rag, soap and water immediately. But you'll be fine. But if you go and you try and clean up your skin with isopropyl alcohol, that's the fastest way to get a sensitization.
I have been giving bad advice. I'm sorry.
Really?
Yep.
You've been giving that advice?
I've been telling. So it's what I do. It's what I've done for years.
Okay, stop doing that immediately.
I know that now. Shit. So all right, here's my process. Okay.
Yeah.
Drop a resin on the skin. Go get a lint-free paper towel, one of the blue shop rags. Isopropyl on that, wipe in one direction.
Okay, sorry. No, I have to tell you can't do that. Don't do that.
And don't go outside.
And don't go outside. That's a good one. But
soap and water.
Soap and water. Do not remove as much of it as possible using a rag or paper towel. Discard that. And then soap and water. All right. Now, I have been manufacturing for a lot of years. I get resin on me all the time.
Well, crap.
I do panic. I follow the same procedures. If you put iso alcohol on resin on your skin and they mix, okay, what you're doing is you're opening your pores. You're offering direct to your
get in my skin.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to do that. I'm not trying to scare you.
No, look, in theory, right? Okay, isopropyl alcohol removes the resin fast. It cleans it. It's great.
100%. I understand the logic behind it.
The logic is
so important,
but the practice is
that's
not.
why it's so important that I mention it. Don't do it. any kind of alcohol. You want a soft, gentle dial-like soap, like a soft soap.
So not like a Dawn. So you were talking earlier about degreaser. I would say I'm going right to the Blue Dawn because that's a degreaser.
Sure.
That's
Yep,
gonna.
that's not gonna hurt you. That's fine too, probably. I'm just saying, like, normal hand soap is fine, right? Or your shop soap. Like a lot of people have, like, if you're like a mechanic, they have like shop soap. And
Yeah,
granules and
yeah.
stuff.
The fast
good stuff?
orange with
Yeah,
I love that
That's
stuff.
the good stuff.
That's the
yeah,
good
that's
stuff, man.
I'll use that stuff more often than not because that's what we have here at the shop.
Yep.
But yeah, no, don't put ISO on your skin. You don't want it on your skin unless you're cleaning up for a shot. You don't want it on your skin. Like disinfecting. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Like,
No. All right. So there you go. Even I've been doing it. So literally next week, Print Fix Friday, I'm gonna be mentioning this because I've said it. I've said it more than once on the channel. Because like to me, if I can get it off in one wipe, right? Then theoretically the exposure is instantly taken away because now the alcohol, yes, it's opening my pore, but the resin's gone. So who cares? So I don't know that. So that was how I justified it, right? Is that correct? Probably not, but I'm not a chemist.
No,
right?
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Believe me. When I was younger, I did it that way as well with UV inks.
And that's literally the good intentions, bad process.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why these type of conversations are great. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, look, this is why I wanted this conversation. People like you hate being proven wrong. No, I love it. I love being proven wrong. There is nothing more that I love in this world than being proven wrong, especially by an expert, right? Like, Craig, you're an expert. There is, I don't have, you're an expert. I'm sorry. You make this stuff professionally. You are certainly a professional because you make money doing
that.
This.
We can go with. I'm certainly a professional. It pays the bills.
I would say that between you and your team, you guys are experts.
Okay.
I would say that is. I will say it for you. I know it's hard to say that as like I hate saying that I'm an expert on anything because it feels like I'm just like tooting my own horn, but. I will say I know it for you. You are an expert.
No, I get it. I'll take it, but I don't. I never call myself an expert in anything. For again, legal reasons.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So, Monkey Butler Labs has a good question. So how exactly is venting this outdoors making any of this any better? We're just counting on dilution in the atmosphere to magically make this safe.
Yeah. So listen. You're not supposed to put VOCs in the air. If you get past a certain amount at an industrial level, they start tracking how much VOCs you put into the air. My understanding of it, and I'm sure there's somebody smarter than me who can talk about this better, but the molecules will link with something else in the atmosphere and turn into a different molecule. So they link with something else and it turns into something else, is my very, very broad.
So what you're saying is I need like some sort of like meteorologist or someone like that on
somebody who can talk about some kind of
No, we don't. No 3-letter organizations around here, sir. We don't like those.
Yeah.
We live in Florida. We don't deal with that 3-letter organization.
Yeah. Maybe there's the chemist guy in your chat. Maybe he can answer it better. But you said doesn't say this.
I was thinking like Goobertown Hobbies might be good too because he's
Goobertown
and he's the an actual.
If he doesn't have the answer, maybe he'll know who to ask. But it is my understanding that it doesn't stay the same. It changes when it mixes with everything else in the atmosphere. So by one stance, you don't want to put VOCs into the atmosphere. That's not something we're trying to do. We do try and limit it as much as possible. But understand at my level, they don't. I'm at a pretty high level, and they don't nowhere near the tracking level, nowhere even close to it. And I buy IPA by the drum, So
what does a drum of IPA run, if you don't mind sharing that? I am uniquely curious about this. It's 55 gallons, right?
I'll tell you right now.
Oh, you're pulling up the actual price. I thought you were just going to give me like a number.
I'll log into my system here and check out what we're paying.
Well, don't give away anything that's going to piss off your suppliers.
No, it's fine. This is just
it's like a gallon of it's like 50, 60 bucks on Amazon.
Yeah, I'll just give you a basic range here, but we're paying. Oh, this isn't it. Not wrong raw material. I have lots of raw materials in here. Go ahead.
For me, I buy my 5-gallon Denatured at my local hardware store, not Home Depot. My actual local small
Nice.
hardware store. It's
Those are-
$88
Those are still
for
around.
yeah.
I
I
don't
live
have
in
any out
a dude.
here.
I live in Pahrump is a town that has like 5 times voted not to become a city. Like so, no, actually,
Wait,
we still
that
have
wasn't
quite a,
just a random name you guys chose. You actually live in Pahrump, Nevada.
yeah. The whole reason Pahrump, Nevada even exists, and
What
we're
a
more than 5
name.
minutes in, so I can say this, is it was the closest that the cartels would allow a prostitution area to exist. So the very first brothel you could have, the closest you could get it to Las Vegas, was what became Pahrump, Nevada.
So that's why you're there. So all right. So so Atlas might have a different business model. Got it.
Well, we did form during the laboratory era, whatever
That's
the word
fair.
we're supposed to use, when all of that was shut down.
Chris Catlett saying 5 gallons of Denatured at Menards is $55. I don't have Menards. I get it for $20 a gallon, or no, $16 a gallon at Rural King.
$16 a gallon. Okay, so I'm depending on the it's basically a commodity for me. So
Yeah.
depending on who I'm getting it from, I'm paying like $1.30 to $1.75 a pound plus incoming shipping.
That's not bad.
So it's about 8 pounds to a gallon or something like that. I don't know exactly the density
Yeah,
of alcohol.
assuming it's close to water, but it's not. It's lighter than
Yeah.
water.
So yeah, so we'll say I'm paying somewhere around $12 a gallon, maybe in there. I don't know.
But
In
that's
drum
stupidly
corners.
cheap for IPA.
Well,
Because that's
but
IPA.
you're
Yeah.
also buying
I buy drums
thousands
of
of gallons at a time, I would assume.
Well, we buy 4 drums at a time, so that's
Oh,
what fits on
okay,
a pallet.
200 gallons.
Yeah, so you want to. I mean, generally speaking, when you're talking about incoming shipping,
Pallets.
we want to do pallets just to keep our shipping costs down. So 4
Yeah.
drums fit on a pallet. So it might not all be ISO, mind you. We might mix in a couple other chemicals on that pallet, but yeah, that's how we do it. But anyway, yeah, it's not too bad. So, but anyway, the point was we still don't come anywhere near the VOC outputs
No.
to even get on the radar of the
3-letter words.
the 3-letter words.
See, my theory is if we don't mention any of them by name, they ignore us.
Yeah. That's not a bad. Yeah, I forget we're on YouTube. We should probably.
Yeah. So I used to possess a chemical handling license. We used to manufacture our own cyanoacrylite for full color 3D printing, the sandstone style of 3D printing, where we would produce gallons of it a day, and we would go through gallons of it a day. You want to talk about problems with cascade curing?
Yeah.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Buddy,
Yeah,
you want to talk about
stabilizers?
You want to talk about vapor problems? Whoo, buddy.
I believe it.
You get a batch of CA to cascade cure. Has anyone ever seen CA smoke before? Because I had a gallon of CA smoke on me, and the Marine who was working with us at the time said it was worse than CS gas.
Oh wow, that's fun.
Our pharmaceutical grade rated fume hood was not enough to get it out. Yeah, we took the day off.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's when you just call it a day.
I said, hey,
didn't work out.
so and so, let's go to lunch. He's like, how about we take the day? I'm like, I just said go to lunch. I didn't say come back. So we left the fume hood on high and just came back the next day. Everything was fine. But yeah, and that after that day was when we looked to find a manufacturer for the formula. Because no more of that. That scared the hell out of me. But yeah, to buy the components of CA, you had to have a chemical handling license. So now, of course, I use methylene chloride all the time, which is a methylated solvent, which is way worse. Yeah, I don't know if it ever.
It's amazing. It's amazing what you need a license for and what you don't. You know,
America.
It is. It's very unique. It's very unique.
Yep.
So.
It is. All right. So, is there anything that you want to tell the folks at home that they should know about 3D printing resin that they may not know?
Let me think. So we covered the fact that it's it's hazardous in liquid state, always will be. Doesn't matter what the label says or what somebody tries to tell you. It's always assume it's a category 1 for skin sensitization, which means you will get allergic to it if you get it on your skin. We talked about that. I will say the one thing that I think is a misconception that people see is your prints that you print for modeling are not fully cured, even if you post cure them. Okay. So most resins out there are still going to be a skin hazard. Okay. So you print a beautiful model and you want to play with it and you're touching it after it's post cured, it's still got monomers that are not linked in there. All right. That could potentially be something. So after you're holding it, don't freak out, but wash your hands after you're holding those type of materials. That is the whole reason we developed the thermal cure products, because once you thermal cure it, you no longer have that concern if it's done properly. The only other way to do it is with methacrylate products, but the whole industry pushed us towards speed. Everybody wants speed. Well, methacrylate is slow. So, we could, if the market wanted it, we could make a resin that was, well, we already kind of did, our original hero resin, methacrylate based resin, low skin hazards, very low problems. But these fast printing resins, they're not going to be methacrylates. So
how much slower is the methacrylate?
Oh, considerably.
6 seconds to 10 seconds.
6 to 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. So we're going back to
we're talking
the RGB
apart.
LCD days.
It's not economically viable. I have been told that by individuals, by businesses. They literally said, you could sell me magic bean juice that does things to me my wife won't do, and I still won't accept it at 6 to 10 seconds. I'm sorry.
Yes. So that is the biggest problem. The market doesn't want it. So if you
oh,
don't
that's
want
clipped. I'm sorry. That's gonna be a short. That I clipped that, guaranteed. Sorry.
That's fine.
That was a good line. That was a good line.
It's a great line.
So yeah, it's the market doesn't want it. The market doesn't want methacrylates products. The only people who do want it are dentists, and so we're formulate most all dental resins are likely methacrylated.
Is that why they're so damn expensive too?
Yeah, well, they're so damn expensive because it can be, but also yes, they are. There's so much money. I'm developing right now. We're working on a surgical guide resin. Nice. I'm looking to become a medical device manufacturer by next year. So first quarter next year.
There's good money in that.
Right.
Anything medical, for those that don't know, there's just gobs of money being given there, but there's also gobs of liability.
There's also gobs of liability. Yep. Correct. So we're ISO 9000 certified.
Nice.
ISO 9001 certified. I have to get another certification. I have it written on the board because it's on my to-do list.
13845.
ISO 13445 is what I was told, but there might be others.
I think it's 13845 or 13485. That's permanent internal use human body certified, right?
13845. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yep.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So we've got a local shop that does titanium 3D printing for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to get that certification, and so that's on my to-do list. But anyway, as we're formulating for the surgical guide material, that is going to be a methacrylated system. And, in order to get, it's going to be expensive, not because necessarily the raw materials are, but just to get
the
this,
certs
you have to develop a process.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to get everything tested. So it's like just 10,000, probably 10,000 in like initial round of testing. And if you fail, guess what?
Another 10.
You have to do it again. It's like, and so you have to develop a process that works throughout the system. And so it's an expensive process. So why is it so expensive? Because the R&D on it is crazy expensive. Yep. Not to mention, the salaries of the chemical engineers that you have to pay to teach you how to do this stuff.
Chemical engineers aren't cheap. Engineers in general aren't cheap, but there's a reason for it because they know what the hell they're actually talking about.
Yeah, they make it possible, right?
Yeah.
Like without them, it's not possible. So
correct.
I could throw shit against the wall all day long, but the chances of me, hitting a target are going to be limited without somebody who understands the structures, understands how to put the monomers together to create a finished product that's going to be adequate for the application you're shooting for. That's a whole different thing when you start talking about medical devices. And surgical guides, they only have to be in someone's mouth for an hour, so that's like a low bar.
Yep.
If we're start talking about implants and stuff.
Yeah, these guys are doing spinal fusion jigs.
Oh wow.
Custom ones like designed for you. Which cool. Hope I never need it. As someone that has back problems, I told him, I said, dude, if I ever need this surgery, I'm making my own damn piece. They said, you absolutely can. I said, great. But I hope I never have to make that video.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be,
it's like,
video.
Like, hell yeah, but crap.
Yeah.
I have some dental resin that was sent to us by a client who wanted to do dental 3D printing. And, we evaluated it. And I said, ultimately, it's probably not for us. because the process of cleaning it also requires a fully like certified process. I said,
Mhm.
he wanted to pay around $1 a tooth.
Yeah.
And there's no money. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how many are you going to order at a time? Oh, well, maybe 5 or 10. No, there's no money. There's no
Yeah.
money in that. I said, I'm sorry, but you need to get your own setup because for dental resin, I'm going to charge a minimum $200. To turn the printer on with dental resin is $200.
Yeah, I
right?
believe that. I mean, a kilogram of dental resin is what, $150, $200, somewhere around there right now.
1,000.
Really? What for what kind of resin?
Let me.
How do I make that stuff?
I'm gonna grab it. Hold on.
Yeah, seriously. $1,000 a kilo, like that's
$1,000 a kilo. That's how you retire.
Last I checked, Vario Smile Crown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's for in your mouth application.
Yeah. This is permanent.
Permanent. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a different. Okay, so when I'm thinking dental resins, the surgical guide resins are like $150 to $200 a kilogram.
Now that's a
because it's not
warning
permanent.
label. That's a warning label right there.
That's GHS certified right there, because that's what it should be. There should on all my labels, you're going to find a paragraph of
I can
and read
try
it.
to read it.
Yeah, you might need an eyeglass.
No, it's the words.
have it.
Contains esterification products of 4,4 isopropyl ediphenyl, exhalated and 2-methylprop 2-ionic acid, diphenyl phosphate oxide. Yeah, it's just like all the crap that's in it.
So that's interesting that they're putting it on there. There must be some of those must be SVHC or something.
This is also made in Germany.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Germany makes good products. Yeah. There's the only reason I could see that for them putting the raw materials on there, or because they're going to be on some kind of list like
RX only.
Okay.
So do you have to get a prescription for this?
I
don't know. I know this bottle was $250. That's what I know
okay.
Yeah.
Well, for stuff that's going to be permanent in your mouth, I could see it going very, very expensive. But yeah, I'm not at that level, to be honest. I don't know how to do that yet. I do plan on it, and I have lots of time, so that would be cool to get into. I'm just excited about getting into surgical guides, because that's class 1 medical devices, which is like a low bar to get into it.
Yeah, let me see what it's going for these days. It's Versio. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I said, I said it wrong. Let's see. Yeah, because this is for 4 3D printed crowns. Let me see the cost of it. 250 grams, $285.
250 grams.
Yep.
So that's 25% of a kilogram.
Yep.
So 250.
It's basically $1 a gram.
That's crazy to me. It's probably the manufacturing process probably super stringent. Like I would imagine that in order to do that, because I know once you get to the class 2 medical devices and it comes to the manufacturing it, I can't even have those raw materials. This is my understanding. If we get to that level, I can't have those raw materials in the same building that I have other raw materials.
Yeah, you can't.
Because so it's like you're talking about setting up a dedicated laboratory facility to manufacture just that one product. I don't know. I don't even know if that would be feasible, for a United States company, to be honest with you. But
no,
at 250, at $1,000 a gram or $1,000 a kilogram, maybe it is. I don't know.
So they have a temp version that's $50 for a bottle this size, so it's $200 a kilo. But $1 a gram for this, which is just.
Could you imagine how much is your calibration on that?
Yeah,
like I'm gonna run a calibration print real quick. Oh, that just cost me $15.
Yep. Yeah, so. That's part of the reason. Like I told the client, I said, you're trying to get it at cost or below. Like, I'm sorry. He's like, well, I'll provide you the resin. I said, but you're not covering the labor. You're not covering the one thing that I actually like. The cost of the material. This is like the only bottle of resin that and the Formlabs resins are the only resins that I really even care about the cost of the resin, because for resin printing specifically. The cost of the resin is insignificant compared to the labor cost involved in it, especially when you're paying an awesome company like Atlas 3D to do your sporting. It's not cheap, but it works. Remember that train that we did? Remember that one? How much of a pain in the ass that was?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I needed one. Yeah. So like that's
That's what we normally actually tell people when it comes to supports. Like some things are not economically viable to have done in supports. Like
Yep.
it's just,
Yep.
you have to accept that you're either not going to make your money back, and so this is something that you want, and we're not talking about economic rationality now. This is just a wants thing. Like,
Yep.
it's kind of the same thing with resin too, and I think that the overall market still hasn't made up its mind about what it actually wants, and
Well,
like
that's
in a
because
way
they
that's
don't
kind of good.
understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
I agree. I agree that this is a. I think 3D in general is like a market that's in search of a market still. Like you like finding it, printing gears because they need it to break, not be strong. That's interesting, right?
I
Like
never
would
knew that was a market. They found us.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
So it's like these markets.
Yeah.
The last mile production is going to find all these little nuances of things and in 3D, and that's why honestly it's so exciting to be in it. And I don't know where we're going to be. You're always a phone call away from an incredible new business opportunity.
That's right.
Just being capable of doing it. I'm just waiting for that phone call for somebody to say, "Hey, can you make a resin to do this?" And I'm going to go, "Well, we're going to try." Because you don't know. And if you can create something, because everyone's trying to figure out how to implant 3D into their systems.
Mm-hmm.
Or some kind of version of it, and resin's going to be a piece of that. And yeah, I don't know where the market's going to end up, but I do hope that we start to curtail back towards, maybe instead of trying to constantly push towards better, faster, stronger, we say, okay, well, I'm willing to sacrifice a few seconds of exposure time to not have to deal with these hazards. And by the way, if that's in your realm, give me a call, because we do manufacture products that aren't going to be so crazy hazardous.
I am more than willing, because dude, that job that I was talking about earlier where I had to buy the 2 Jupiters for, I could have bought 10 Jupiters and still made money on that job. Right? Like
right.
The cost of the machine, again, I don't care. If it was a $5,000 machine, I would have gladly paid it. I didn't care. Right? Yeah. I needed the machine to do the project. When the project is done, the machine is free because the project paid for the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I don't care if I burn screens out faster. I have already told myself that I am not ever going to replace a screen on a resin printer. I'm going to give it away to someone who wants a cheap as chips resin printer and a $150 screen on the high side. Fix it. I'll buy another one. Because I'd rather see it get another life. The labor,
my time is worth more than that.
Exactly.
It's not just the labor. It's my time and my sanity. I am sorry. I hate replacing screens, and I hate replacing FEP.
Yep.
Like, I have paid people. I've hired locals. Like, hey, listen, put some gloves on. Come on down. You can make stupid money per hour, because all I need you to do is be cheaper than $40 to buy a new vat, because I hate replacing FEP.
Yep.
Yeah,
I am absolutely guilty of just buying new vats rather than replacing. The only time I've ever replaced a FEP was when I did a video about it. That's the only time I've ever replaced it. And for that video, I stabbed a FEP a bunch of times so that I knew which one was bad.
That's crazy. I'm kind of guilty of it too. I don't change FEPs. I have the employees do it. I feel bad about it, but not that bad. Because I hate it. That's literally
the perk of being the boss.
The
perk is
it's certainly one of the perks.
Somebody else's job.
Exactly.
And on the safety thing too. And God, I should have actually got him in on this too. We have a partner, and what's interesting for me, for Atlas and for Craig too, he is our 3rd largest client, and I have some fairly large clients, but my 3rd largest one is a resin purchaser who is one of the largest resin farms in America, Dungeon Artifacts. I hate resin 3D printing so much. I have now outsourced about 90% of my test printing to Dungeon Artifacts, who lives just across the way from Craig. So he sends me money that I send to Craig. Craig sends him resin that he then prints with, like, for me. Like, it's
Little
one
bit of a
nice
loop.
big loop.
Yeah.
Be nice if y'all just made a deal. Oh, that'd be collusion. Never mind. That would be collusion. Like, it'd be good if y'all just made like a trade deal and you didn't pay a bunch of tax. That's tax evasion and collusion, and neither of those are legal.
No, but it does allow you, like, you can do some very, very legal, interesting accounting.
That's what accountants are for. And are
Yes,
any of us
yes.
accountants?
well,
No.
that's what we have people for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we all have accountants.
Yeah.
So, and that's right, as Rose Kindred said, even the Joker doesn't mess with that 3-letter organization. That is the only thing the Joker has ever publicly been afraid of. Not afraid of Batman, afraid of that 3-letter organization. Remember, kids, Al Capone wasn't caught for being a gangster. He was caught
Yeah.
for tax evasion.
That's right.
They'll get you
Well,
on
now,
that.
to be fair, though, they got him, though, because he filed a tax return. If he had just never filed a fucking tax return, he would have been fine. But he had to file a damn tax return because he wanted some of that sweet-ass cash, and he needed it to be clean. So,
Yep.
you know, kids, if you're going to do bad things, do not file tax returns.
That's not advice. Do
That's
not
not
listen
advice.
to that man.
I'm not associated with
Yeah,
him.
do not listen to the man that you can't see.
Yeah.
I'm
You know, the
just
funny
a
part-
voice from the cloud.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'm definitely not in England.
Yeah, that's true. So for the record, when it comes to the making resins less hazardous, it's not even so much of a cost thing. Like we can make bio-based resins and stuff, and we can make them at that. It really comes down to exposure times. Like
Got it.
if you're willing to print at 5 to 6 seconds, and we have that opens up a whole new world of chemistry.
Which
Like I
is-
said, bio-based resins and all the rest of it.
Is
And
that
you'll be
double
dealing
or
with
triple cure times generally?
Right now, it's almost triple because
Okay.
you know, most
We
of the
can get double,
mainstream popular resins are at 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you'll be at 5 to 6 seconds, I think, on like but you know, if you have a resin that is, again, it will still be a skin sensitization. I can't. It's still going to be a liquid problem, but it won't have inhalation hazards assigned to it. And when it's cured, it'll be very low skin. What am I
Skin
looking for?
sensitivity.
Very low. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good for like not good for your skin, but it's like very low irritants. So the question is it worth it to people? You know, because I'll bring it to market.
Is
I
that
have the
one
raw
of the
materials.
resins that get the compliance for external use on the human body? Is that what they're using to do that?
It could be. I mean, it certainly could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like with Soraya Blue, for example, it's
That's the one I
only
was
safe in
totally
skin
referencing.
but you have to heat it though. If you read their schedule,
Yeah.
it actually is. It only becomes rated after you've baked it for over an hour.
Yeah, there's
so that's
baking.
the same stuff.
There's like it's a water cure too, I believe. They require for that is cure it in water.
Okay.
So yeah, curing in water does oxygen inhibition, and that does help. But the thermal cure is really because our thermal resin Herc, non-cytotoxic once it's thermally cured, right? So that's really what you want to get to. So there's 2 ways to get it. Now Hercules gets it through the thermal cure, still liquid hazard, like it's still still the nasty stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want to print at 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds, and even that's kind of delayed, you want to be in that realm. But you can get it without thermal curing. You're just dealing with different less hazardous materials, and then you just react slower.
Right.
So yeah, and that's what it comes down to. But again, bring it to the market. I can make a nice bio-based methacrylate, very low hazardous. You don't really have to worry about it so much, but no one's going to buy it because they're going to be like, well, I put in, the same settings that I use my Elegoo hard resin and it didn't work.
It didn't work. Yeah. It's clearly
and I'm
that's
gonna go-
your fault.
Right. So that's the problem. That's the barrier to entry into having those type of products, because it's just not worth it to bring it to market, to spend the money
Mhm.
if no one's going to buy it. And then if they do buy it, then they get a bad taste in your mouth with you because they don't understand what they bought. So I'm not trying to wreck my brand by saying, without clearly communicating what it is, each product is. So
So what about for molding? Rose Kindred, and I don't know if Rose asked it the first time too, but I know it was asked earlier. Platinum grade silicone and resin are not friends. So one,
yeah, we
why
solved
Yeah,
that
they
problem,
are
yeah.
now.
oh,
Yeah, we solved that problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
so all right. Why are they?
Hercules
Why
rigid.
is that an issue for most resins?
There is,
If you know.
I do know, but I don't know. I don't know right at the same time. There's something in it that prevents the silicone from curing, and I don't remember what it is.
Because tin cure works perfectly fine. It's a platinum that doesn't like
It's
it.
the platinum that doesn't. There's something there. But anyway, we solved the problem. But again, by thermal curing, going back to what we originally talked about an hour and a half ago at this point, if you link all of everything together and there's no monomers that are loose,
Mm-hmm.
then then there's nothing to inhibit the cure of the silicone.
Right.
Right. So with the Hercules rigid resin, if you thermal cure it, then you can use platinum cast.
And this has been confirmed by a fairly large YouTuber that you all know who does dice. And at some point, he will be talking a little more publicly about it.
Yeah.
But
Noted.
like, I'm absolutely confident because he and I've had long conversations. This also started multiple years ago, where it was like he asked
Yeah.
us, the thing that I need is this, and
Mhm.
you know, it
I got
ended
close
up
a couple
working.
times. I got close a couple of times with not using thermal cure, but it wasn't predictable or repeatable, so basically not marketable. So I would get results, and I'd be like, "Oh, I got really excited." I even sent them a video, and I'm like, "This is it, we've got it." And then I went to do the exact same process, and it didn't work the second time. And I'm like, "Well, what the hell's going on here?" So I just kept hitting walls. But again, because it's free radical UV chemistry, and that means nothing happens the same way twice. Because it's not every time you polymerize, it's going to polymerize differently. And if you have anything like, loose in there, anything trapped, and it leaches to the surface, not only, actually, that's kind of, you can use that as proof that, your product's not cured. Because if you take a normal resin that you're playing with, this nice fancy clear we have right here, and you try and do as a platinum mold, well, why didn't it cure? Because there's all kinds of unreacted shit on the surface. That's why. So It's like you really that's the stuff that we're trying to avoid when we're thermal curing, So anyway, long story short, wash your hands after you handle your prints. That's my point.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. There's this unreacted shit on there. But yes, we did solve the platinum cure problem by fully curing. So.
Noted. Man.
So I would be horrible if I didn't say you can actually still purchase this. We'll be shipping a little bit later than originally intended, but we are still going to be shipping out here shortly. And
Pimp it out. I'm here for it. Go for it.
I'm waiting on a drum. So
yeah, as far as I know, it'll be the only product on the market that will do this that isn't absurdly priced.
Yeah.
Like, we are right at the Amerilabs pricing level. Like, so it's not, this is not Sunlu cheap resin. This is a high quality product that took substantial engineering and expensive people. Like,
it's got 20 raw materials. It has 20 raw materials.
20 raw materials.
Uh-huh.
Damn.
So if you want to talk about a manufacturing pain in the ass, but it is very repeatable. So that's, I guess I should say that, but it's not the cheapest stuff we've ever made.
That's
it's not standard. It's not 3DRS standard or Vulcan, even though Vulcan is up there too with the complexity of it. But I love that formula. So but anyway,
well, and that is the thing that again, to be like the marketing monkey here, that is part of what we've been trying to build for the last 4 years, is a domestic network that is able to produce high quality materials here in the United States in a repeatable fashion that's open and honest about what it's doing. It's not a race to the bottom. And literally, we are made and manufactured in the United States. And I feel like that matters.
You're gonna pay a little bit extra for it, but yeah, it's why. Big plug to our filament sponsor, Printed Solid, who also manufactures and makes right here in the United States in Newark, Delaware. I support Made in America. It's not because I have an issue with Made in China, but I want to keep jobs here when and where we can. My company is Made in America. We do have people that are globally, right? And that's just so we can play time zone game if we ever need to. But, the bulk of our staff are here in the States. It's not a racism thing. It's literally, I don't want to see more people losing jobs. Let's keep them here. Let's keep them local.
Yeah.
Well, we all went through the laboratory times where the long supply chains meant we didn't have things when something went weird.
And the dark days of the human malware, right? Where all of a sudden we realized, oh, that's a problem.
Yeah.
We gotta be able to solve that. So Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay with paying more money. Again, I don't like the if you are a business and you're like, I can't pay that much for resin, you're not charging enough money. Charge more money. Oh, my market won't sustain that. Well, then you're in the wrong market, right? Like, and that is the way business works. If you, I say this all the time, if you double your price and you lose half of your customers, you are making more money because you're spending less time to make the same amount of money. So you're netting more money, and you don't have your material cost either. So, like, stop trying to use the cheapest resin that exists. Use good, high quality resin. Now, I have never used it. In fact, Atlas wanted me to beta test Hercules, and I did not think that just my experience with resin is not where I felt comfortable saying that I can provide you with what you would need for this. So I recommended someone who was much better than me at doing that. And, from what I've heard, is damn good stuff. Damn good stuff. And is it cheap? No. It ain't trying to be. It's trying to be where it should be for its price. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that we have a full line of products, so we do have inexpensive products, and the goalpost quite changed. When we started formulating in 2018, the average resin price was very reasonable at $35 to $40 per kilogram. That's a reasonable price target where we can operate. But, nowadays I have resins that I do sell all the way down to $15 per kilogram in bulk, though.
Yeah.
In bulk. And that's the only way I can compete at that level of pricing. The standard price, I think the best product I sell is my standard, as far as economical goes, is my standard dark cool gray. And that I sell that at $14.97 a kilogram if you buy a full box of material. So not everyone likes buying 16 kilograms at a time. But I can't compete against Amazon.
Right.
Just to give you an idea, these bottles, I don't know if I have one.
I've got some kilo bottles around here.
Okay.
They're just not yours.
The only kilogram bottles that are available to us are those black ones.
Yeah.
Okay, those are $5 a piece. All right. And then my average shipping cost to ship that kilogram UPS ground is $7 to $10.
Yep.
Okay. Just in containers.
That's $12.
Yeah. Just in containers, I'm at $12, $13 to $15, depending. If I got to ship to California, it's, so it's like, it's almost impossible. So it's like the only way to really, yeah. So I don't even play the game. I never even play the game. I sell in bulk. I manufacture in bulk, and I make resins for specific people who want specific properties, and that's how we stay in the game. And yeah. So anyway, it's not like we're crazy more expensive. It's just we the only way we can price compete at kilogram levels is bulk. So.
Yep. And then for me, dude,
and
it's old fashioned. It's pouches.
His pouches were a great solution.
Because I can put a 1.5 kilogram bag in a 6x6x6 box, which I can ship anywhere in the continental United States for like $8.
That's awesome.
And and that is the only way that I can compete on price. And then I throw models in it because I work, I'm Atlas. We've got 1,000 models a month that come through. Yeah. Well, no. Like, so I give people discounts on support work. It's like, hey, here's the support price. If you throw me some models, they don't even have to be unique. They don't need to be exclusive. Just throw me some of your back catalog to put in with my resin. I'll give you a discount on your support work.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I bundle that with my resin, because even with my shipping advantages, I cannot beat Sunloom unless you buy a box at a time. Yep. See, that's not my job. Like, this is the whole network thing with me and Craig. Craig handles the bulk stuff and sells to me in bulk, but doesn't, it doesn't economically work for him to sell to small individuals, but that does work for me because I do the pouches.
Right.
With the model files. And then, it is a holistic approach.
Yeah, for sure. And that was
that's symbiotic relationship if I ever seen one, man.
Yeah, it is, because he's basically the pick and ship for that market.
Yeah.
And we provide I think we provide in Vulcan a very high quality product at a very competitive price using the pouches and using his distribution methods. And it's great. It really is. And I think we'll continue to grow. We've been growing. I think we'll continue to grow using that method. And I know that we're coming to a close here, so I just want to offer your listeners.
If you want to roll, you can. I don't care.
No, I have nowhere to go. I was just saying, I didn't know if you had a hard close at 2:00.
Never. I just say we could run 2 hours. So the rule for me, and I don't normally publicize this, but hey, let's publicize it. The rule for me is At about an hour and a half, I look where the conversation is. If the conversation needs to come to a close, we're going to bring that train into the station. But if that train was just given a 500 shot of nitrous, I'm not slowing it down. I'm jumping on and say, let's go. Right.
Sure.
I want conversations to find a natural ending. If that means it's a 4-hour podcast, so be it. These are things that, like, this is a live show, obviously, but we have non-live portions where, like, this show will go up audio only in a week. So we lag audio only by 1 week. And I do it too. I listen to podcasts while I drive. A lot of people listen to podcasts while I drive. So this is a great way for them to learn more about it. And so if you want to roll, let's friggin' roll. But if you want to wrap it up too, I'm totally fine with that.
No, I was just going to say, if anybody has in people who are listening, I can't see who's listening, but if anybody has any direct questions, feel free to ask before we close out here, because I will answer them to the best of my ability. Although I've never done a live show before, and I'm always kind of nervous that I'm going to say something stupid, so I try.
Yeah, we can't edit it. Not easily. I can edit it later on, but it's like hard cuts. YouTube only lets you do like hard cuts. You can take things out. You can't add things back. I've said dumb things on camera before. It happens. I can nuke live streams so they just don't exist anymore. I mean, that's possible. I've done that a couple of times.
I don't think I've said anything that makes me feel like to ask you to do that.
No. And look, if there was, I would like pause it out to them, be like, "Are you sure you want to keep saying this?" Okay. I had internet problems.
Yeah.
Because I do routinely have internet problems, so it's a totally reasonable excuse. Travis G is asking about Hercules resin. Would it be a viable option for something like remote controlled cars?
I think
I'm good.
Good.
No, please.
Having used it, realistically, because I do drone, I play with drones and such, weight is the key.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% confident that would be weight optimal. I think you might have better solutions with filament still.
I think so.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't parts on a RC car that might do very well in resin. Anything where you want maybe a bit more shock absorption, or where I think might be fun are some interesting springs. I think that you could print springs in Hercules that were functional.
Oh, and you could also do like a different spring rate, because you could start with thicker and then go to thinner, so you could have an adjustable spring rate. That's totally fair. Rose Kindred says at least no hard hat for this stream. I'm gonna show you guys something. So I got cut earlier, and you might say, Grant, that looks like a cat scratch. It's not. These are probes from a multimeter. I scratched myself with probes from a multimeter earlier. It is like right in the path of where a cat scratch would be. No. I got some solar panels used off of Facebook I got 1,800 watts of solar panels. They're old. They're polycrystalline panels for $150, and I set some up outside. And when I have to test the voltage to make sure the voltage isn't going to go too high for the controller. And I stabbed myself. So, I dragged across my arm accidentally. So, yeah, I wear a hard hat when we do like printer unboxings, because traditionally I'm going to hit my head on something. So it just became a joke. They're like, "You don't have a hard hat," and I'm like, "I totally have a hard hat." So I went and grabbed my hard hat and started wearing it for streams. Like, you know what? Whatever. It has helped. It has saved a couple of times. I'm here for it.
That's awesome. It's good shtick.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's actually useful too, because when we built the Voron Trident, a piece of the frame came down and hit me in the head, and I bled a little bit, but thankfully it didn't like go past the hairline. Monkey Butler Lab says, I've owned 2 resin printers over 2 years now. They are still new in the box because I can't get past the potential hazards. Not just me, but others who may break parts down the road. So, how do I get past the paranoia and get going safely? That's a great question.
Great question.
That's a great question.
Let's talk about this. First of all, I can't ask you any questions. Can I? Do you have a garage? Do you have a barn? Do you have somewhere?
There's going to be a lag to getting the answers, but yeah. Okay. So obviously, it's remove it from your house, right? Do it. Remove it from your house. Inside.
Yeah. I think what people are scared of most often is the fumes, and I think there's a big misunderstanding there for the most part. It is going to be an inhalation irritant in most cases, not all cases, but it could be an irritant. It's not the end of the world, and if you're worried about it, good ventilation system, or simply do it in the garage. Do it in a barn, set it up outside. Maybe you can't do it year round. I don't know where you live, but you want to be at 70 plus degrees. All right. So I would get started in a summer outside.
They have
even just put it on your deck.
They have no weather safe space.
You have no weather. So you're in an apartment.
Let's assume.
Okay.
Let's just say too, like, I really think that, like,
For me,
there
then it's
is
a bathroom with a vent fan.
yeah, well, so if it is either,
Something
sometimes you need to accept that not all environments are going to be optimal or even friendly for resin 3D printing. And
Yeah.
if you are in a small flat, resin 3D printing is always going to have higher costs or more risks for you, or more of a pain in the ass in terms of setup. There
Yep.
is no way around that. You just
Yes.
have to accept it.
So that's part of it. The only other thing I could think of is if you're in a space where you're limited, I see a lot of people buy a small, inexpensive grow tent and use that to vent. Just put the entire printer inside the grow tent.
They're for
And then you-
tomatoes, I swear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Hey, it's legal in my
anything
state.
else
It's
you
for
want to
weed.
grow? Yeah, I'm in Illinois, so anything else you want to grow, that's up to you. But I think I'm making the assumption that the main concern is the fumes at this stage, because handling it, wear gloves, wear eye protection, even wear a face shield. Like sometimes I literally wear
the flip downs.
Yep.
A
full fold down, like, face shield, because any kind of splatter or something, if I'm working with a lot of parts and working with a lot of SL, I don't want it in my face at all. So I mean, as far as the PPE for that goes, obviously get a good pair of gloves, get some nylon gloves, get some good face protection. And by the way, when you get resin all over your gloves, throw the gloves away, get a new pair on. Don't try and save your gloves. I don't understand this.
Nitrile gloves are cheap.
Right.
Cure
If you
them
get
before you get rid of them, though. You don't
Yes,
want
you
to put
should
raw
be
resin
curing
in the
them.
trash.
Yes, that's true too.
Yep.
Clear garbage bags, put all your stuff in there, set it outside for a while, and you're fine.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think if you're going to try and limit hazards, a grow tent or somewhere so you can just keep all the fumes together and vent them outside some kind of way, if that's your main concern. And I think a grow tent's a good way to do that. Otherwise, outside. And going back to what Will said, if you're simply uncomfortable with it,
Don't do it.
I think maybe it's not for you.
And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay.
That's okay. Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Like-
And if you try it once and you're scared of it and you're like, you know what, I feel like it tickles my throat. Some people are allergic to peanuts.
Yep.
So it's like if you open up a bottle of resin and you have an instantaneous problem with it, then it probably isn't for you.
Yeah.
So I have zero problems. 95% of the population probably has zero problems with it, but
A
some
few
people
will.
will.
And
Some
over
people
time,
will.
you might too. So just keep an eye on that
Right.
as well.
Right.
So they said that it is a house, no garage use or shop outdoors, Midwest weather. They said, thanks, guys. I've got gloves, apron, bought an exhaust fan, but worried about the neighbor's pets. If you are worried about the neighbor's pets,
Oh,
don't
they're
vent
fine.
it near the neighbors.
You're
Yeah.
going to be fine.
Yeah, you'll
the
be,
neighbor's
and
pets
you'll
will
be
be fine.
Think about the amount of airspace that you have, even if your homes are like in these neighborhoods where the damn houses, you can touch them. Think of how
Yeah.
much air that is there. So yes, there is a contaminant. Theoretically, there's contaminant. You are now putting it from a high part per million count to a very low part per million count because there's a lot more air volume outside. That is not advice for how to properly deal with it, but that is just let's think about it in theory here. It is technically less,
You're creating far more by mowing your lawn with their standard lawnmower.
Yep.
You're creating
Oh,
far
yeah.
more exhaust.
VOC.
Yeah.
And the rest of it. So it's like I wouldn't worry about the neighbors.
I
I
wouldn't
doubt
either.
they'll smell it. Unless you have giant vats of isopropyl alcohol sitting in your backyard,
They're not
no one's
gonna
going to notice.
Now, I will say, if you have this reminds me of something that did happen to somebody. Let's say you got your alcohol barrel, not even barrel, just 1 gallon container, because it doesn't even take very much,
Mr.
and it's
Alcohol
really
Barrel
dirty.
over here.
But so the key point here, though, is that when you have really, really resonated alcohol, it smells like old homeless man. And if you spill that outside,
Yeah, don't do that.
it will smell like old homeless man wherever you spilled it for more than 2 or 3 days. I know this because I had someone show up at my Discord and say, I did this, guys, just so you know. And his wife was not happy. It's
Yeah.
almost always the wives who cause the husbands to end up in my Discord saying, how do I fix this? Because my wife is not happy with me. And I
Yes,
still
the
wanna
wife
print."
approval factor went down. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
I
Yeah.
know it's a real thing, man. I know it is.
Don't use it as a de-weeder, because
No,
no,
do not.
don't pour
pour your
uncured
shit
anything
outside.
in your friggin' yard.
Yeah.
Well, no, in this case, his got knocked over. Like I forget the exact specifics of how he spilled it, but it was an unintentional thing.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "But I can still smell it, man." I'm like, "How long will it take to go away?" I'm like, like a week. Like, and it's true. It
Yeah.
takes like about a week. Like if you have a good spill, and this is again like why should I respect this? Why should I be worried? Why should I treat this seriously? Well, if you fuck up, it can last a week before the smell goes away.
Yep.
In my world, and I'm a smooth brain monkey, that's significant.
Yeah, that is significant. So
Also, you're not going to be getting it off the carpet.
no,
No,
yeah.
just cut the carpet out, put a new
Just cut the
carpet piece
carpet
down.
out. Don't
Yeah.
don't work on carpet. Lay
Put a
plastic
rug down if you really want
Yeah.
to. Put a rug down, but yeah, do not work on anything that can absorb.
Yeah.
If you get resin on your clothes, it's time to take the clothes off
Yeah.
safely, but
Yeah.
get them off. Don't be like that guy on Reddit that was carrying a resin printer in his lap
Oh man.
that didn't care about the resin and
Who's
then
that?
basically degloved his thighs.
Wasn't there a
Nah.
guy on YouTube? I remember seeing a video maybe a year or two back that like tried to prove that resin curing wasn't that bad on your skin, and he put it on his thigh purposefully, and then he went outside and cured it on his thighs. Is that ringing a bell with anybody?
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. Same story.
No.
Different story.
This was a guy moving. This was a guy
Oh,
moving who just was ignorant to the damage, and he put up the photos. We did a Print Fix Friday about it as a PSA. It's chemical burns, and
It's a chemical
by the
burn,
way, your skin doesn't heal very well from that. And he was like skin graft territory of problems.
No.
Oh wow.
So
when
yeah,
I
like
first
I don't know if it
started-
required it, but it very well could have.
When
That's
I
crazy.
first started doing resin 3D printing, because like I start resin 3D printing, and then like 3 months later, Atlas is formed. So like I very quickly went from this is cool to it's a job, and so I was assembling a lot of parts in the beginning, and it's difficult to do lots of gluing and things actually go together better when they're like uncured.
Right.
And so I was holding and handling a lot of partially cured resin, and I basically lost all of my fingerprints for a while. Because of the super glue and the resin. And
yeah.
that was when I really began to realize like, oh, wait, like there's casual interaction where you don't even notice. But like if you're regularly interacting with it, like
Yep.
fully cure your stuff, which
Yeah.
is what led us to making Hercules eventually. Like we have been on a pursuit to not be a cigarette company, basically. Like
Yep.
I don't want in 20 years everyone to be like, oh damn, I wish I never got into resin printing because now I have insert, thing.
Yeah.
Shannon asks, I see people with resin printers inside their house and only using a home air purifier. Is that enough?
No, the home air purifiers probably don't do anything.
What do you need to properly purify the air
You-
other than
vent.
exhaust?
Exhaust. That's what you need.
You can't like run it through fine mesh
carbon
HEPA,
filters.
carbon.
Carbon filters.
They filter the smell. They don't really do anything else.
They don't do much. You're not. So first of all, understand that when you paint your house, you're dealing with
Oh, yeah.
very similar fumes.
Way worse.
Way worse, right?
Yeah,
so
you
if
ever
you
painted
go
a
and
house
you,
long enough, you're like, ooh, I feel way better
right,
than when
you're
I
gonna feel
started.
so paint the solvents that come off of a latex paint are probably, and I'm not gonna put this in stone or anything, right? Don't hold me to this, but they're
I'm holding
probably
you to
worse.
this. You're not gonna be able to back out of this. Sorry.
Yeah, they're probably gonna be worse. They're probably gonna be way more
agree.
VOCs than you're getting from the light fumes that are coming off of a resin.
Yep.
So if this comes down to it, is it that bad for you? I don't know. If I had babies in the house, I wouldn't be doing it. But as me as an adult, if I was in an apartment, I would be fine with it. It wouldn't bother me at all. I live around this stuff. I deal with a certain amount of hazard, a certain amount of risk, and I understand what it is, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, you have to decide what your level of exposure you're willing to have is.
Right.
And if a home purifier, in my opinion, probably doesn't do dick.
I don't think so.
So
We have a big one. It's not really
Yeah.
made for a home, but
Yeah.
it's a 3-stage 4-inch HEPA filter with a 2-stage carbon.
yeah,
You don't smell anything out of that. And
right.
I'm like,
you're probably
it's-
removing something. It's not gonna hurt anything, right? But are you removing the VOCs? I don't
better
know.
than nothing.
It's probably better than
Yeah,
nothing.
it's better
but
than
no,
nothing.
I
That's
mean,
how I think.
Yeah, I think the best way is to exhaust it or not. I can't say or not worry about it, or accept. Limit your exposure to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, be in a well ventilated area. Open a window when you're when you're done printing. Open a window, air it out. I don't know. Decide what your level of exposure is. Most stuff is very low VOC, the resin itself.
Yep.
And the one thing I will say though is there is not much information on the reaction itself creating any off gassing, layer by layer. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that is an unknown still.
But most
I don't know what to say
of
about that.
the VOC issues in the friggin' washing. It's not in the printing.
It's exactly.
Which
It
is
really
what I was
is.
saying, like,
VOC is caused by
outside.
splashing
Yeah.
and like mess.
Yeah.
Resin printers, unless you break a FEP mid-print, are by and large cleaner than your FDM printers. Your FDM printers are just spewing microplastics out from the fans, right? Resin printers, they operate, unless your will, in an enclosed environment for the most part with little to no airflow, right? Yeah. So from like a health and safety thing, it's probably fine. But
Right.
My print room does have no airflow. But
it's the
if you
cleaning
walk
side
into
of it that's messy.
100%.
Yeah.
If you walk into my print room, though, you can absolutely smell the plastic.
Yeah.
And again, smooth monkey brain here. Like,
maybe that's why.
no. See, it's smooth monkey brain logic. Like, if I can smell something, my brain says, no matter what,
it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, or at least it's not necessarily good or bad. It is just simply like my brain has smelled this, so like I need to attenuate. And then, do I notice anything different? And for me, I have asthma. So like I have noticed a difference, and so I have adjusted how I deal with my resin printers.
Yep.
But if it is like, especially if you've been printing for a while and you're hearing this and you're like,
oh crap,
I wear my gloves, I'm not drinking the vat. Like, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Like, but if you're new, your biggest risk is in the washing and the curing.
Yep.
And so do it outside.
Yep.
Yeah,
and in a very well ventilated area.
I would concur.
Sure.
I would concur with all of that.
Yeah.
Also, that's why I use the colander too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it keeps it away from you.
I always considered resin printers a shop tool.
Yep.
So when I picture it being adding it to your repertoire, I picture you doing it in like a wood shop, a garage.
It has PPE associated with what a shop would have.
Right. It's a shop tool.
Yeah.
And to me, if you have a one-bedroom apartment and you're not worried about it, that's fine. If you have 2 kids and you're trying to do it in that, maybe not. And deal with it. And also, if you have a wife or someone who's going to bother the smell, they might hate the smell just being in the carpet and being in the.
Yep.
If you're not ventilating it, then it's going to be in the curtains, you're just going to smell it. So
it's just like cigarette smoke or any other kind of smoke. It's any kind of anything. Like it goes out and it settles.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't go nowhere. Like this is part of why venting it out into the atmosphere is viable, because there's constant moving air.
Yeah.
And so the elements that are reactive can react, and the elements that aren't reactive will bind with other elements in the air and precipitate out. It doesn't generate acid rain so far as we're aware. So it's just going to turn into basically the precursors for what becomes dirt.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. I'm sure this might change in 30 years where this podcast ages like fine milk. But
I think yeah, exactly. It could be.
That's the other thing. We don't have long-term exposure testing outside of you're going to get allergic to it. We don't know if this is like precancerous. Okay. We don't know if this is going to be like a mesothelioma thing. So wear your effing PPE.
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit, just so you guys know.
Oh, okay.
So you're right. We don't necessarily have all the cancerous testing is dermal for dermal hazards and all the rest of it. Some of it is tested. Like TMPTA is one of the largest monomers in the United States, and it just got put on Prop 65's carcinogen list. But here's the thing. It is highly, highly contested from people who actually know and do the testing that say there is no way you can expose yourself to this, even in an industrial environment, enough to get cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Unless you're bathing in it, unless you're drinking it, right, then all bets are off. But UV photopolymer is not a new chemistry. We've been making UV inks since I was a pup and long before that. And in industrial environments where you're 3D printing flexographic printing inks, that all of your food packaging is made with UV inks. Well, not all of it, a good portion
the bulk of it, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of it. It's water-based or solvent or UV chemistries. Those are the
Right.
3 big ones. A lot of it is, even if it's printed in water-based inks, it's still more than likely got a UV coating on top of it.
Yep.
And that's been going on for 40 plus years, maybe longer. And, you know, if there was some kind of, and believe me, these old school shops, you think they had PPE? They didn't give a shit.
No.
Like
That's why the old timers, they either live to 1 billion or they die by the time they're 50.
Right.
And
Exactly.
if they're dying by the time they're 50, it's like nasty reasons they're dying, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
we do have long-term exposure in that regard. And I think that
I don't want
You
anyone looking
are-
back regretting.
don't regret
Right.
anything. Don't keep it off your skin.
Yeah.
Vent out the fumes, and you're fine. You're really fine. The isopropyl alcohol, the cleaning process, as we already discussed, is the part where you're exposing yourselves to a ton of VOCs. Wear a half-face respirator. Wear a full-face respirator. And don't overthink it. And if you're smelling a lot of stuff, then you need to adjust.
Yep.
Adjust as you go. You
Yep.
know,
I agree.
you can live 50 years and smoke 2 packs a day, and then there's people who get lung cancer for no reason. You know, it's like you don't know, so limit your exposure.
I agree. You know what? Honestly, that is the best place that we could leave this. Limit your exposure. Be conscious, be safe, be mindful, limit your exposure. And you know what? You'll be all right. Probably. Maybe. We don't guarantee it. We make no guarantees expressed or implied here on this podcast. Nothing that you heard was medical advice, financial advice, or otherwise. We are just people that like talking about things to a live
I am
audience.
a monkey.
Yeah.
Just for the record, not a person, monkey.
Oh, okay.
And I am
Well,
by
this
no
is a
means an
cat.
expert.
I have a cat on my shirt, and I'm not a huge fan of the stock. Rose asked if there's why do dimensions change while curing. That's just heat. It's heat deflection, generally speaking, in my experience with it. It could also be shrinkage. Yeah.
Mhm. Shrinkage, yeah.
But yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap the show. Stay with me because we're gonna give away some filament. I reached out to I put out a poll on Spotify to see if people wanted the filament giveaways edited out. So they said yes, and since I don't feel like editing them, I'm gonna wrap the show. Then we're gonna give away filament. It's still gonna remain live. I'm gonna stop my local recording so that I don't have to edit anything out. So there you go, Spotify users. You
Lazy.
kind of win. It's
All right.
lazy. You're correct. Yes, that is lazy. But I don't want to spend more on editing than I already have. So this has
And
been
that's good business.
that's true. This has been, and then when we're completely done, I'm gonna send you all to go hang out with Steve Build. So this has been episode 199 of the Making Awesome podcast with Craig from 3D Resin Solutions and a representative, we will say, from Atlas 3D. Thank you all for watching. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, wear your PPE and keep making awesome. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Okay, we're still live. We're still live. We're still hanging out because we got to give away some filament. If you guys want to hang out for the filament giveaway, you can. If you don't want to, theoretically, you don't have to. But,
Well, I'll tell you what. Next time you can give away some resin on me, but I do have to bow out. I got to get my kids. So enjoy the rest of the stream. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, man. Be safe.
Make it a great time.
And now you're just stuck with the voice from God.
Yeah. There's just a voice from God right now. All right. So voice from God. How much resin? How much filament should we give away?
Well, I mean, you're asking a monkey, so at least 30 kilos.
I don't have 30 respondents.
Oh, okay. Well, then, I mean,
You
give
think
away
for
2
free
kilos.
filament there'd be people that are actually like saying, I want some free filament. It's free filament shipped to you for free.
It's because nothing's free in life anymore, so people just didn't believe it.
You
So
all
yeah,
will
yeah,
have until my clock strikes 2:20. You have less than 60 seconds to get in on that form, and I'm gonna draw 2 winners.
Two's always good.
2 is good. Yeah, next time we'll have to
Like Noah, 2 of each animal. You know what I mean?
sure. Yeah, oh look at that. I say something and we get to 35. That's so funny how that worked. Yeah, go ahead, get your answers in. I swear. How many people don't know how to math? Wow. Okay. We don't have anybody that doesn't know how to math today. That's good. We often have people that don't know how to math. There's a math question. It's a very easy question, but there is a math question, and often people
See,
get it
that's
wrong.
funny. So like, that's your captcha, right? Like that's your thing to stop bots.
No, it's just the come on, you got to put in just a little bit of effort,
Yeah.
you know, to help me out here. So
Yeah, see, I feel like those are totally broken now because of large language models with vision. Because you can basically just send them a screenshot and be like, "Hey, what do I have to do?"
look,
And the models can do it now.
if somebody really wants to LLM out my
free
free
filament.
couple of spools of filament, honestly, you've done more work than I care to, so you've earned it in my book.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
All
fair.
right, we got our people. We're gonna shuffle a few times. We're gonna spin to win here on the wheel of names. Let's see
Wheel of
who's
names for the
winning
win.
some filament. Ooh, God, I think he won just literally last week, but that's fine. Adam Phantom, are you here?
You better be here.
So we peaked at like 88 according to my metrics, and we're down in the low 50s.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Adam Phantom, are you here? You know what, let's do 3, but I'm not gonna redraw. So if they're not here, they're not here. Too bad. I'm gonna give away 3, but if they're not here, too bad. So Adam Phantom is number 1, and you gotta be here. If you're not here, you don't get the dang filament. Let me find him and mark it as yellow. Let's remove and do the next one. Yeah, so Adam, I don't see Adam Phantom in the chat right now. No response. We got, let's make sure this is right. James L. Well, you were one of the more recent ones, so I assume you're in the chat. James L., are you in the chat? See, also the fun thing is, I have a requirement for people to subscribe to comment, and it takes a minute to do that. And I won't wait a minute. I won't wait a minute for them to respond. So,
Bail it in.
Yep. If they're not subscribed, that's not on me. So James L. I don't see James L. either. Man, it's gonna be an easy day for me. We're gonna do one last one. We'll mark that one yellow. If they show up, they show up. Last one is Mr. Justin Miller. Let's see where Justin Miller is on my list. Ooh, number 2. Number 2 to list in. Justin Miller. Justin Miller. God, am I not gonna give away any filament? Everyone's like, oh, I identify as James. Oh, Justin Miller says I'm not here. Sorry. Is that who I think it is? I'm fairly certain it is who I think it is. Cool beans. Well, that is our filament giveaway for this episode. I am going to send you all over to Steve Builds. I'm trying to figure out a right way to do this, guys, so bear with me until we kind of figure out a method to where I don't have to edit a 3.5-hour video. But yeah, if the other guys figure out they actually won filament, I don't know, reach out to me, I guess. But I'm going to send you all to go hang out with Mr. Steve Builds himself, as we tend to. Remember, mildly harass him, but then let him go back to doing his job. We have fun here. So let's see. Steve is doing a black box thing. But yeah, guys, I hope everyone enjoyed this one. This was a lot of fun. Thank you to Atlas and to 3D Resin Solutions. You guys are super awesome. But yeah, take care.